Hello, and welcome to day 2 of Satellite India. I'm Shanku, and I want to thank you for joining us today. We've got another packed day of programming, and to start off, I want to take you through a tour of GitHub's products to show off some of our latest features and to show you how you can use them together to build software across the world. Now, yesterday, Erica was here to celebrate all the amazing things that are going on in the GitHub community in India. Growth of the community here has been incredible. In the last year, 1.8 million developers have joined GitHub from India, and over 1 million developers have created their first repo on GitHub. India has now become the fastest growing country in the world in terms of developers contributing to open source. That is amazing. Erica has also announced a new set of GitHub programs in India that we're very excited about. The GitHub Grants for Open Source program, which will provide 10 million rupees of grants to open source projects based here in India. The GitHub Accelerate program, which will partner with startup accelerators and the Indian government to expand support to over 1,000 startups with our complete platform. And finally, the GitHub Externship program for students, which will provide participating students a chance to get real-world experience working with software companies. And we're really thrilled to see what you are accomplishing with GitHub here in India. This community is poised to double in the next 2 years, and we're excited to see what you will build with GitHub next. Now, GitHub is the world's largest developer community, and it is for a purpose, and that purpose is to build together. We think of software development as the world's largest team sport, and we believe that it is a sport without borders. Now, I was born in India, and I moved to Canada when I was young to study computer science. Then I had to move again to the United States to take advantage of the best opportunities in tech. That was the reality back then, right? If you wanted an opportunity, you had to move to go find it. Remote learning, remote work, global companies, these were all concepts that were unheard of. But today, it is possible for a team of strangers to come together from across the world and build incredible things together. And this is what we see on GitHub every single day. Collaborations and contributions from developers all over the world in real time. And it's also increasingly the reality at work. Teams of all shapes and sizes, companies from all over the world are going remote, and they're going worldwide to tap into the best developers, whether they come from Mumbai or Mombasa or Miami. And those developers need to be able to work together on projects from wherever they are. And that's what I love about GitHub. GitHub was built for this kind of collaboration. So today, I want to take you on a tour through GitHub's products and show you how you can use them to build from wherever you are. Now, do you remember your first time joining a software team? I know I do. That thrill of writing code and committing it for the first time and seeing it in a product, right? But first, there were all those things you had to go through, right? Setting up your dev box, setting up your tools, getting your code and looking through it to learn, going through docs and style guides, all of those things that you had to learn before you can contribute something without messing it up. Even with the best mentor to help you, that could take days. And the reality is today you have to do that all the time. Developers almost never work on just one thing. You're always having to switch contexts, work on different projects, fixing live site incidents, contributing to other teams' code, or even just learning something new. That is not easy. On average, it takes over 23 minutes to switch context and get into the flow. And that is if you've got everything set up for you. Often it can take a lot longer. So at GitHub, we care about this a lot. We want developers to be able to get into the flow, get into the code, and contribute, whether they're joining a project for the first time or just getting back into it after a while. To show you how GitHub helps you get in the flow, here's Neha.
Hi, I'm Neha. I'm the Director of Engineering here at GitHub for the team that works on discussions. I'm pleased to announce that we've now enabled discussions on private repos, and that means for this private repo, we can have our team conversations here and leave our issues for tracking our work. Here we have some internal chat about skylines, these cool 3D printed contribution graphs that people have created using a website we built. But we also use discussions to talk about ideas in the team and with others in the company. My teammate Diana had an idea here the other day about adding a year selector to the page, and I really like that. So I want us to work on this. So let's create an issue from this discussion thread and track the work. So I'm just going to go in here, reference the issue. give it a title, and then I can just scroll down and I can create the issue. So this shouldn't be too hard, and I'm thinking I might be the one to pick this up, and so we can do it together. Let's just take a quick look. So I'm gonna go over, I'm gonna assign the issue to myself, and you can see that this isn't the code base that I work in every day. This is just for fun. So rather than downloading all the dependencies to my machine and getting a full development environment set up locally, I can open a code space right here in GitHub, and I can get my own personal dev box in the cloud right away. And this isn't just running the visual code editor in the cloud. This is a full-blown personal development environment in the cloud. So for example, if I go over to the terminal and I type in npm run dev here in the console, I can get the full local development experience as if I'd had the code locally on my machine. Codespaces even sees when my code is running a server on localhost, and so it'll let me connect to it across the internet, taking care of all of the HTTPS tunneling and authentication to ensure only I can see what is running on my dev box in the cloud. So let me type in my GitHub ID, NerdNeha, and let me check out this awesome graph. So this site's pretty awesome. It's got a nice soundtrack, and the coolest part is it's running on my dev box in the cloud. But yeah, 2020 isn't really a year I want to remember. So let's get started on that issue that Diana mentioned by adding a year selector here. Codespaces is already authenticated with GitHub. So I can actually just go to the GitHub extension in VS Code, and it has my issues already listed. So if I click on it, you can see the issues listed here. I'm going to find the issue that I created and start working on my issue. And you can see that it's already created a new feature branch for me to add my changes. So all I have to do now is take a look at the files. So I'm going to go over, I'm going to find the form part, which I happen to know is called hero.view. And I know that the code that I want to add in is between the @ symbol and the submit button. So I'm going to quickly add the code for a year selector, and then I'm going to hit save. Now, this is a full development environment. So if I just jump back into my application, we can see it's refreshing just as if I was running code locally, and it'll start to bring up the selector. There it is. So I'm going to type in my username again, and I'm going to test it with the 2018 year. I know that I had a pretty good year that year, and also I had this great break for summer and Thanksgiving. So I want to see if those show up. And so here we go. Okay, so you can see my skyline, and you can see that I even at the end there's some nice gaps. It's when I took my end of year vacation super seriously. And so this is all running in my private development machine in the cloud. I can come in, I can mess with the graph, I can scroll around. And so I know that this works and I'm ready. Let's commit this and let's share the changes with the team. So what I want to do now is I want to go back to my editor, and I want to first commit that change locally. So I'm going to go into the Git view, and you can notice it already includes a link to the issue that we're working on. And so then I can go ahead, I can commit it, and now I'm going to create a pull request. So I can do that by going straight to the extension, and then I'm going to go into my GitHub view. I'm going to create a new pull request. It's going to figure out which branch I want to compare to, and it's going to even publish the branch for me. So I'm just going to scroll down here, hit create, and then I can create the pull request, and it's going to do all of the work of publishing the branch, pushing the changes in the server, and even creating the pull request in the server. So you can see my PR, it's right here. So if I go back into my repo on GitHub, I can navigate over to the pull request tab. So let's do that really quickly. And there you can see my PRs available, year selector for graph, and you can see that it's ready for my team to review. And I can see that the CI builds have already kicked off, so I can to verify my change. So let me go in, I'm going to tag this with the enhancement label, and then I'm going to make use of this super cool new feature. It's called auto merge in GitHub. And so what I'm doing here is I'm having the PR get merged automatically as soon as all the checks are complete and the code has been reviewed by the team. And so I don't have to do anything here. And this leaves me free to get on with my next change. In the meantime, let me hand you back to Shinku.
Thanks, Neha. Now, once you've written your code, it's time to get it reviewed and committed. Now, code reviews have also changed in this new world. It used to be that you could invite someone over to look over your shoulder, and review your changes, and give you a quick thumbs up. But now that you're working on a distributed or remote team, you still need that review. You just need new ways to do it. Now, on GitHub, everything about code revolves around the pull request and the code review experience. Pull requests were designed to let strangers review and collaborate and commit code together. Now, during the last year, as teams have become more remote, we've seen something amazing on GitHub. developers are actually submitting pull requests for code reviews more often than ever before, as much as 30% more frequently. And when they do, those pull requests are getting reviewed faster than ever before. And that's good news. If your PRs are more frequent and smaller, they're easier to review, and that leads to higher quality code reviews and higher quality code. And when they're easier to review, they also get reviewed faster, which means that they get committed faster and shipped faster. Now, better PRs also means not just having human helpers, but the bots. Github Actions and our amazing ecosystem provides an integrated CI platform with thousands of custom actions written by our community that can automate all sorts of reviews, running your unit tests, applying linters and style guides, checking your dependencies, and just helping you commit better code. To show us more, here is Atul.
I'm Atul, and I work on the GitHub Actions team here in Hyderabad. This is the PR from Neha, where she has added a new year selector to the site that we are building. For every change we make to this site, we build and test it automatically using GitHub Actions. Let me show you the CI build for Neha's latest changes. If I go into the summary view, you can see the brand new visualizer showing us running the build and test steps on both Mac and Linux machines, all at the same time. This takes advantage of GitHub Actions and our hosted build runners, which provide you with secure build servers on demand. All of this infrastructure is managed for you by our team at GitHub so that you can add new build machines whenever you need them for either Linux, Windows, or the Mac. Let's go back. Let's look at how the build is configured. Our workflows are defined in the .github folder under workflows. We are going to look at the CI build first. We can see that it is triggered by new changes in the main branch, but also by any pull requests that are targeting the main branch. We also define which operating system and node versions we want to run our build on, and then we build our code, run the linter, and do a full test suite pass. The Actions community is fantastic. With over 7,000 open source actions in the marketplace, in the CI build, we have added an awesome community action from Tim Lucas and Joseph Peterson that will update draft release note for you based on your issues and pull requests. So that's the power of community for you that you can use to manage your CI. We also create and deploy a test environment in the cloud for every single pull request. This makes it easy for us to review the changes in a working environment. So let's take a look at the dev test and deployment workflow, which is run in parallel alongside our CI build. So as you saw, this is triggered by pushes to main along with new pull request. We come in, get the code, and then deploy it to our cloud provider using a secret which we store securely inside GitHub's built-in secret store. We've also added a job to this workflow that will come back and destroy the environment when the pull request is closed to keep our cost down. So let's go back to the PR from Neha and review it. Let's scroll down. I can see the link that has been added by the deployment. So I can click on that and quickly test the changes without having to install anything myself. I can see that the new year selector is there. So let's just enter a name and select a year 2018, and then take a look at the graph. The graph is loading. And yeah, I think the contribution graph looks good. It has the year as well. So I think the year selector is working. You're able to select the year as well as see it on the contribution graph. So let's go back to the PR and let's review the code. The code looks good. So let's just say LGTM and quickly approve the code. Now, because Neha has enabled auto merge, as soon as I approve the change, the code is deployed, the code is merged automatically, and GitHub Actions take care of destroying the test environment for me. So everything just works end to end. Back to Shanku.
Thank you, Atul. Now, by using GitHub pull requests and actions, we are seeing our customers ship code to production way more often. But it's not just enough to ship faster. You also have to ship safely and securely. One leak secret, one vulnerable piece of code, one insecure dependency can cost you time, cost you money, and cost you your customers' trust. Now, we're humans, and humans make mistakes. It turns out the majority of security vulnerabilities are just human mistakes. And once those mistakes get into code, they're hard to get out. So if you can fix those mistakes before you ship, or even before you commit code, that's great. And if you can't, then the quicker you can fix them once they're found, the better. So with GitHub security tool, security where it makes the most sense, right into the developer workflow. So you can find and fix these issues more quickly. So to show us more, here is Niroshan.
Hello everyone, my name is Niroshan Rajadure and I'm part of the Application Security Field team here at GitHub. And I'm going to talk to you about the work we've been doing in this space through a quick demonstration. In our example here, we have advanced security enabled in our organization. And this allows us to easily switch on code scanning and secret scanning for our private repos. But everyone can still use these features on your public repos for free. Just go to the security section of your repo settings and switch it on there. I can get an overview of the security situation for my project from the Security tab in the repo. Beginning with supply chain issues, here we have Dependabot enabled. It is automatically looking for vulnerabilities with my dependencies, and it will create a pull request for me if one of them needs updating. Looking here, I see Dependabot is telling me about a new release of one of the actions that Atul was using. It's a minor revision, so I'm going to go ahead and approve this change to keep us up to date. All the tests are passing, so I'm going to go ahead and merge this change. Now even our build processes can be kept up to date with Dependabot. Back to the Security tab, I see that secret scanning is also active. Let's take a look to see if any of my team accidentally checked in secrets or API tokens so we can stop them from being externalized. If we look at the closed issues, we can see one of my developers accidentally checked in code that included a token in the past. So we've actually revoked that and removed it from the code. So that's known vulnerabilities and secrets taken care of. But what about our unknown vulnerabilities? With CodeQL from GitHub, we're able to scan our code base looking for code which could be introducing potential security vulnerabilities into the code that we're writing. As you can see, it's identified one here for me. I can show the code path that was found with CodeQL's analysis tools, and I can see that this is definitely an issue. However, it doesn't look like it'll lead to a major exploit in our case. But let's create a quick issue from the code so we don't forget about it. This should be a simple fix to explicitly toString the value from the URL. I'll also mark this as a good first issue, in case someone wants to pick this one up. Once I'm happy, we'll save the issue to make sure we don't lose track of the work we want to do. Excellent. We'll get back to working on that right away. While we've had the Security tab on your project for a little while now, today I'm pleased to announce that enterprises with GitHub Advanced Security now have a Security tab added to their organizations where you can get a quick summary of all the projects. You also have an overview of all the projects in your organization and what the status is of their security features. I'm also pleased to announce that this is now available to teams who can see the security status of the repositories that they administer. With that, back to you, Shanku.
Thank you, Niroshan. Now, we've got our code written, reviewed, and committed. But where our code really belongs is in our users' hands, and that means shipping. Doing the functional testing, sharing with stakeholders and getting them to sign off, and releasing to production and celebrating together. Now, GitHub's new tools were designed to make it easy to test and release together as a team. To show us more, here's Katie.
Thanks, Shanku. Hey, everyone. Now we have a release that's ready to head out the door. Thanks to a tool, we already have a draft of our release notes. Let's edit a new release based on the draft notes. First, I'm going to set the title. Then I'll check the draft notes that were automatically created. To be honest, these look pretty good already, so I'm going to go ahead and publish this release. Now we have a workflow set up in Actions to be triggered by the publication of a release. With our new workflow visualization UI, you can see the release is now deploying to staging. Then it'll run some end-to-end smoke tests before finally deploying to production. While all of that is running, let me show you how I've set this up. Let's take a look at the code in another tab. In the GitHub Workflows folder, we'll find the releases.yaml file. In the release YAML, you can see I've set up a couple of different triggers, a manual trigger with workflow dispatch, as well as triggers based on when a release is published. In the deploy staging job, I specified the environment name and URL where this will be available. You can see I'm also requesting the published token secret from GitHub's built-in encrypted secrets vault. After that job is completed, we run our smoke test, then a deploy to production. Again, specifying the environment name and URL before calling the same action with published token as the secret. Now these steps are identical, yet they publish to different places. That's because we define a different publish token for each environment. Let me show you how we do this. I head into project settings, then in the new environment section, I have staging and production. On the staging environment, you can see we have a published token defined in GitHub's encrypted secret vault. Even as admin, I only have access to update this. I can't view it in the UI. Going back to production, I have the production publish token defined in our secrets here as well. But what's more interesting is that you can see I've set this up to require manual approval before code is deployed to production. Only people from this team can permit code to go live, and there's a full audit trail to see who approved it. Great. Staging's been deployed and our smoke tests have run. Let's take a quick look at the staging environment. Awesome, looks good. I'm going to enter my ID to test out my own graph and make sure everything's working well. Everything seems to be working well. Neha's code is included, so I'm going to approve the release to production. Back in the GitHub UI, I can click on Review Deployments, select the environment, and leave a quick comment. Approve the deploy. There we go. Deploying to production is underway, again with a different publish token from staging. And with that, we're deployed. I'm going to click the URL just to validate. Great. Head over to skyline.github.com if you want to check out your own contribution graph in 3D. Back to you, Shanku.
Thank you, Katie. So there we are, a complete way to build end-to-end. Join a team, get into the code, make your first contribution, get code reviewed with your peers with the help of automated CI, to keep your code and your secrets and your dependencies secure, and test and ship and celebrate together. Now, all asynchronous, all remote friendly, all available from anywhere in the world on GitHub's PlanetScale cloud. Now, software teams all across the world are using GitHub to do incredible things. One such story comes from India's own Infosys.
Like our most visionary clients partners, our goal is to become a completely knowledge and data-driven organization with agility built into our core, so that we can sense all the business changes happening around us and continuously evolve in response. At Infosys, we are envisioning ourselves to be a live enterprise powered by our digital platforms. Our developers, architects, and practitioners are at the forefront of this, leading it for us. And our endeavor is to enhance their experience, make them highly effective and efficient in everything that they are doing. Our digital platforms for productivity and the engineering tools ecosystem allows us to do this at scale and drive any change at the organization level in an accelerated manner. Our engineering tools and the continuously evolving ecosystem of homegrown, open source, and off-the-shelf tooling forms an important cog in the wheel to drive agility and scale in a secured manner. For instance, Infosys DevSecOps platform, Polycloud, Meridian, Leap, Modernization Suite are some of the examples of assets that power this for us. GitHub is a critical element of this ecosystem and is central to driving developer productivity, secure SDLC, inner sourcing, reusability, and augmenting the developer analytics for us. It is unifying the experience of our developers by a variety of integrations around the robust DevSecOps ecosystem. It is also a key enabler for our live enterprise store and marketplace, where we plan to bring together the community of cloud builders on Cobalt from amongst our partners, clients, open source, academia, and the startups to drive contributions and consumption of various assets, as well as enhance the ecosystem with an open source first thinking. Something I believe that any forward-looking enterprise, engineering teams, and developers would appreciate in a big way. As the GitHub team continues to drive their roadmap, I look forward to seeing several of the new capabilities around security, code scanning, telemetry, observability, analytics, and GitHub Actions that can keep on taking us ahead in our journey as a live enterprise.
It is exciting to see what companies like Infosys and you, the developer community here in India, how you're using GitHub every day to create amazing things. Thank you. You inspire us to keep making GitHub better. In just the last 6 months, we have shipped over 100 new features and improvements, including many of the features you just saw. All you need to do to get started with GitHub is available for free on github.com for developers and teams of any size. So if you're just learning to code or contributing to open source or starting a new team or starting your own startup, you can do that on GitHub for free today. All right, thank you for joining us on this tour today. This was fun to do. I hope you enjoy using GitHub as much as we love building it. As it turns out, we're not just building developer tools for global teams, we are one ourselves. GitHub has always been a remote-first company, and we now have developers from over 15 countries working together as one team. And a big part of our team is the GitHub team in India. They're building GitHub on GitHub with the rest of us. So in closing, it's my pleasure to introduce you to the GitHub team here in India.
I am Sanjay Malpani. I work from Hyderabad as VP of Software Engineering. I love our dedication and focus on building one of the greatest developer experiences.
I'm Manish, Country Manager of GitHub in India, based in Delhi. I love working at GitHub because I get an opportunity to support developers, students, and customers that are driving India's growth.
I'm Atul Malviya, Director of Product Management at GitHub. I love working in GitHub because GitHub is where the world builds software.
Hi, this is Divya Vaishnavi, Director of Product for GitHub Education. I love being at GitHub as I can empower the lives of students and teachers across the globe.
Hi, I'm Mohit, Enterprise Solutions Specialist for Asia region. I have the opportunity to do the best work of my career so far.
I'm Nahaz, and I'm the Regional Sales Director for GitHub India. And I just love the fact that I'm able to empower the developers with the right set of tools to bring out the best in them.
Hi, this is Pulkit Agarwal. I'm Product Manager here at GitHub India. GitHub to me is an open platform, a free marketplace.
Hi, I'm Richa, Senior Director for Software Engineering. I get to empower developers of today and tomorrow.
This is Satya. What I do and my teams do impacts millions of developers across the world.
I'm Shashank Bansal. I'm Product Manager for the GitHub Marketplace. Together, we make the best software solutions come to life.
My name is Smita Agarwal and I'm the Head of Finance for GitHub India. I love working for GitHub because of the amazing people around me.
I'm Usha, Product Manager at GitHub. I love working at GitHub because everything that I do can impact millions of developers who love to share their work and build some great software products together.
Good morning, India, and I'm super excited to reconnect with you all again today on day 2 of GitHub Satellite India. A warm welcome to you all. And this is Mohit, Enterprise Solutions Specialist at GitHub, joining you live from Delhi. And let's make some noise for the bestest co-host, Divya Vaishnavi.
Yay! Namaste and hello and welcome everyone to GitHub Satellite India 2021. I am Divya Vaishnavi, Director of Product and streaming live from Hyderabad. Day 1 was so much fun and day 2 has started at such a high note. I still can't get over the big programs launched yesterday. What was the highlight for you? But before we start, can I get a cup of coffee too, please?
Divya, you will have to win it. So let me ask you something, okay? Yesterday, we announced a new program for the future software developers in India. What was that?
Oh, I got that. That's the GitHub Externships program. And Mohit, you know, students don't get the opportunities to get mentorship, to learn on real problems. And this program actually connects the dots. It connects open source, companies, and students all together. So what was the big highlight for you?
Before that, just take it away and make this coffee yours.
Oh, yes. Thank you.
Yes, the big highlight for me was actually celebrating the colors, the cultures, and the developer tribe here in India. But now today, it's time for day 2. And what an electrifying keynote yet again.
Oh, yes. such an amazing keynote by Shanku. Showcase of products and 100 plus features released in the last 6 months. So next time you go on GitHub and find a new goodie, don't be surprised. We are active at work here. Code spaces to reduce your time and develop from any box anywhere on the world. Releases for continuous deployment, obviously discussions, issues, you name it, and we have it all. Folks, today is actually a day of GitHub. We share under the hood what is happening in GitHub, how GitHub is built using GitHub, how GitHub uses collaboration with GitHub and ship using GitHub, MLOps with GitHub, everything GitHub, 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 GitHub.
Oh yes, it's gonna be amazing. So Divya, I have a small challenge for you, and I'm giving you a chance to win these amazing GitHub goodies and make them all yours, but only if you answer my questions. And if I answer yours, I will empty your shelves out there and will get all the goodies.
Let's see who does that, who empties the shelves. I'm up for it.
Okay, so here is my first question for you. We announced a lovely Yogato cat yesterday, and we shared it with everybody. I'm sure you noticed it. You got to tell me, what is the yoga pose in which Yogato cat is sitting?
Oh my God. Is it the Nindra Mudra?
No. It's the lotus pose, the Padmasana. And with that, I'm going to get a goodie from you.
Okay, here you go. You get the Mona.
And I'm so excited to just kick off the day now. I wish, Divya, you were right. But audience, tune in, and I'm so much excited to hear from you again on Twitter. So hashtag GitHub Satellite. Tell us what you thought about the keynote, what you liked the most from day one, and most importantly, what are you looking forward to and excited about in day two? In day two, again, we have 2 channels for you, one on DevOps, second on open source. And if you're watching us on githubsatellite.com, you can change the channels on the top. Go check out Karan and Anisha, who did an amazing job yesterday. And we won't mind that at all. Come back whenever you want. And if you miss any of the talks here, you can get that on demand later on 29th March. That's Karan and Anisha for you.
And here is the attendee survey. Just go, we want to hear your feedback. Click on the link below the video and share your feedback, as well as discuss with us on discussions on any topic you want to discuss during the session, post the session, use discussions to discuss with us. So come to discussions, talk to us with our subject matter experts, the speakers, and Mohit and I will bring questions from there live with the speakers. Yesterday's workshop were super awesome. We have like so many folks asking to register more. So folks will come back with more workshops like this. But remember, today, again, the workshop starts at 3 p.m. If you've not signed up, go ahead and sign up. So what's coming up today, Mohit?
We got so much on both the channels. At DevOps, we are going to getting into MLOps, workflow automation, and GitHub Actions. And we have got speakers from GitHub, as well as some of our favorite customers who will be talking to you and answering all your queries. On open source, we'll be covering about the CI workflows, AI for the web, and how to do GitHub like a boss. So without further ado, let's get into it.
Okay, so the first session is overview of how we build our platform, a sneak view into our engineering culture and development in India. And it gives me immense pleasure to invite and introduce the person who's doing the talk. That's Sanjay Malpani. I've worked closely with him for the last 5-6 years. Know he's a developer at heart and a miner for data. Sanjay Malpani is the VP of Engineering, Software Engineering at GitHub. He loves to engineer solutions to real customer problems, has worked in multiple startups and large enterprises, both in India and US, and like I said, leads the engineering team in India.
Remember to engage with us on discussions. With that, Sanjay, take it away.
Hi, thank you, Divya and Mohit. Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning into this session and staying on to this track. Today, I'm going to talk to you about how we build GitHub. I'm going to give you the insider's view. But before I start, I am VP of Software Engineering. I work from Hyderabad. We have a large presence of engineering team here, and we'll talk about it a little bit more. So in today's talk, what I'm going to share is our engineering practices, our tooling, and our automation. This will probably give you some hints and some of the practices that you can use building your own software using GitHub. Apart from that, if you really like what we do and the exciting work that we do, you can always reach out to me on my handle later on. But before we get started about how we build GitHub, let me actually give you a sense of the scale at which these software have to operate. The best way to start about the scale is to sort of know how many developers are using it. So you do know that the GitHub is the home for developer across the world. What does it really translate to? What it translates to is that we have 56 million developers that work and use GitHub. They have created 100 million repos. And by the way, this number is, continues to grow. Now, when you look at it from these numbers perspective, what is the infrastructure that we use to sort of support these many developers? We are running this stuff, our infrastructure, which is just, I'm talking about github.com, our public site. It uses close to 50,000 cores of CPU. It hosts about 26,000 Kubernetes pods. So what it really means is that whatever you do, whatever work that we do, it needs to run at the scale. And it goes out to so many developers. Isn't that cool? By the way, this numbers that I'm talking about is expected to grow from 56 million developer to 100 million by 2025. Isn't it cool? The kind of scale that we need to deal with. Now that's just the scale of how it is being used. But let me dive deeper now and tell you that, from an engineer who is at GitHub, what does it really mean? So we are about 1,000 plus engineers who are working on this product simultaneously, as Chanku talked about, across the world. This translates to about 600,000 builds in a month. And that takes about half an hour to build in 90th percentile of the time. We care about how that experience is for the developer. So we also monitor what is the reliability of this build system that we have. Once you've done the build, we also watch how long does it take to deploy these onto our production site. So in the last month, we made 535 deployments to our production site. These 535 deployments were the results of 4,000 plus PRs that were generated to be deployed onto the production. So you can see that, we sort of seem to do some magic to make it into 535 deployment. We actually create a train which combines multiple PRs and then deploy them together. This entire deployment finishes in 2.5 hours to 2.8 hours in the 90th percentile. So you can see that a PR from build to deploy for 90th percentile of a time takes about 3.5 hours. Amazing, isn't it? As a developer, I start working on something and I'm ready, and that's available on production to all of my users in 3.5 hours. That's really is the kind of, then we develop, we deploy into production, and then we operate this live site. And this loop continues. The biggest focus in this loop is that we want to make sure that it's reliable, it is secure, and it is fast, which means that I can repeat, quicker. So you saw that, right? That, from develop to deploy, it only takes 3.5 hours. And this is something we are not happy. We want to continue to improve on it. The other thing about this DevOps cycle is it's focused on developer, on team. And so we have made sure that this cycle can be run independently with each developer and each team. That empowers them, right? That empowers them to sort of say that whenever they are ready, they can deploy. And this just creates a very different kind of energy in the team. We also make sure that everything is written down. So that increases the trust in the people, in the developer, right? And it really creates a kind of collaboration built on a trust. And we have made sure that we also have tools that we are using, processes that we are using that encourages this, this collaboration. We use Slack, we use GitHub to sort of document our discussions, and you will see this in the examples as I go forward. So let me start with planning first. So our planning, the first thing that we start off with is a public roadmap. So you can go to our GitHub public website and you will find that we have put out a public roadmap. This public roadmap is our intent to let our customers know what we are planning to release in coming quarter or few quarters down the line. It's very important because our customers depend on us, on our features that we are providing. So I have only picked up a 1 quarter worth of small slice, but you can go to the site and look at others. This is backed by the OKR, which is an internal process. The objective and key results is what every team does every quarter. So every quarter we come together as a company and decide what would we do for that quarter? What are the objectives and the key results that we want to achieve? When all the teams come together, it's also easier to make sure that the dependencies with each other is also sorted out. So in this example, the objective is that we want to make sure that student developers make GitHub Global Campus the home. This objective have a clear key results defined. And as you can see, each of these objectives has a particular person who's responsible for it. And then we continue to track this over the quarter. Every month we score ourselves, course correct wherever is needed. This OKR then translates into initiative. This is really the kind of work that we will end up doing to make sure that those key results are something that we can achieve. From these initiatives, we translate them down to epics. Epics are the smallest piece of work that we bring it down to the customer. So you can see when you look at it that we're being very intentional. We want to make sure that we tell customers what we want to do, and that intentionality is backed up by our process in OKR, which is written down. Complete transparency, each team knows what the other team is doing, and as well, it creates a shared aligned goals. And in initiative in epics, we have made sure that this work is divided into small enough chunk that can be validated on its own and course corrected. And you will also notice that we create a lot of high prioritizations. We are focused on only fewer things that really matters. Now that I talked about planning, there is one thing that happens is that at the end of the day, end of the deployment, we also have every month something called the change log. I didn't show that because look, most of the times what we start off is not necessarily all the time it gets to the change log, just like any other software. Well, let me talk about the develop phase now. Now that we have a plan, now the developer knows what needs to be done. Those initiatives, so those epics get translated into the features. So in this example, the epic is to sort of take our MS Teams integration with GitHub, generally available. So in that epic, we need to do one feature called reminders for both personal and the team. So you can see that very clearly in the feature, we identify the engineer who's responsible, the product manager who's responsible, and the designer who's responsible to work on this feature. These three form a team to deliver a feature. There are success criteria that are very clearly defined. And in most cases, you'll also see that, what are the features or user stories that we need to do to complete this feature. In some cases, when it is not clear, we start things with the spike, which really helps us identify everything that is required for this feature. So in this case, once the spikes were done, all other work and the user stories were identified very clearly. But as the spikes were going on, the way the team would work is that continue to document their finding. And this documentation really happens either on the issue or it happens in the repo itself. And this provides a great means for everybody in the team to participate. In fact, outside the team as well, because everything is visible to everybody. And you can see that some of the conversation here that is going on. And so not only that everybody got to participate, we also have now historical documentation that anybody can come in and understand the context in which the decision was made. And then they can actually take the next set of decision appropriately. Once these things are sorted out, a user story is then converted into tasks, very clear end goals, testing, everything identified. And eventually that results into a PR where team can collaborate further to provide the feedback to make sure that the developer is not missing out something important. Once you've done that, the PR is ready. Now we are trying to sort of take this PR to the deployment. So the first thing that we do is to sort of test it, right? And we have lots of tests and which continues to grow. The number, roughly today is about 7,000 test suites in the 5,000 files. And this thing keeps growing. So now this is the very important thing. When you see this PR process is a very comprehensive PR process. The reason we have such a comprehensive PR process is to make sure that we validate, but at the same time, keep the time for validation to be short. And so that's why we turn off multiple parallel CI jobs. We have also divided CI jobs between what is must to do before the PR is ready to deployment to what can be done in a deferred way. So as you can see, we start required CI job, which needs to complete, and then long-running CI job. Once the required CI jobs are complete, this pull request is ready for the deployment, and I'll talk about deployment in the next slide. But as I said, we want to make sure that we continue to validate all other scenarios. And that's where our long-running CI job continues. And the way it happens is the developers need to continue to monitor and see if there are any issues, and they quickly get to either fixing the test or a code that gets deployed immediately. But if there is some issue with the deployment in the CI and developer has not been able to sort of address it in a stipulated time, we get into what we call is the compliance or a corrective path, where we stop the entire pipeline, stop all the deployments, and all hands are on deck to make sure that we fix the problem immediately. It could be rolling forward, or it could be rolling back the change which has caused the issue. Now that I've talked to you about what the PR process is and the PR is ready for the deployment, now let me take you through how does that really work. So the deployment process at GitHub is a safe rollout process. What we really do is once the PR is ready, we only deploy it on the 2% users, which means that the change can only be seen by 2% users. From there, we move to exposing that to 20% of the user. And once we find everything is fine, we really deploy it for every user. And then the PR is ready for the merge. But as we are going through these phases, the developer gets a time to validate if the changes that they put out has expected impact. And that expected impact could be on two types. One is that you're looking at your business metrics and trying to see that did it have the right impact? Is it meeting our business requirement? The second one is that we look for exceptions or a quality related thing to make sure that the change is not really causing any issue in the production for our customer. Are time based, which means that we go from one stage to the another stage, but the developer has a full control if they want to sort of hold for some more time so that they can do their manual testing if they were not able to complete within the time, or if they find some issue, they can roll back from any point of view. Over the time, we actually introduced this middle stage with the 20% canary, because we found that 2% canary does find issues, but there are times that, the corner cases, those issues may not be, visible with 2. And we found that 20% actually works better, and hence we introduced this another stage. So combined with these 2 stages really helps us make sure that we are deploying it safely, that our customers get to use the feature soon, but we ensure that it's not disturbing or there are no quality issues in our deployment. Now that I've told you about how we plan, develop, and deploy and roll out, let me now talk about what do we do when with our production side. Like any other production side, we monitor it. We use Datadog for metrics. We use Sentry for our exceptions and Splunk for our logs. We have made sure that we have built good amount of alerts around these so that we get to know any issue on the live side early on. And these alerts are routed to either PagerDuty, which wakes up the person on call, and the engineer on the call takes on to that issue that has come in. We make sure that it is done such a way that the appropriate team is actually get involved. Now, there are other issues that may not be of that severity. We continue to track them on the Slack, and in our daytime address those issues as and when they come. But these are all about when the problem happens on the production side. But we also continue to monitor our services, what we call a service level objective. In this case, the classroom microservice have defined 2 service level objectives, that is the exception and the health. And they have a clear objective goal that they want to achieve. And it is get monitored every week, every quarter, and every month. And this SLO review really happens on every weekly basis at the highest level of engineering leadership. The reason for doing that is to make sure that everybody is focused on making sure our live site, our production site is always reliable and available. We also do it at the highest level to make sure that we identify these patterns from any other service, but apply to everywhere else so that customers don't find the same issues again. So I hope I've given you a good sense of how we build GitHub using GitHub. But with any other engineering system or any other system, we continue to focus on what needs to be done further. We continuously improve this. We monitor 2 things very closely: the cycle time that we talked about, the developer raising the PR to the time it takes to the deployment. We keep identifying any opportunity there to optimize and reduce the time. The second part of it that we continue to monitor is the live site reliability, security, and availability. And we continue to make sure that as our users are increasing, that the service is holding with that scale, and we make those changes ahead of time as we start to see any issues with them. We continue to use more of the GitHub, building the GitHub. You saw some of the things that we did, how we use issues, how we use the PR process to do our design reviews. But we continue to evolve to use code spaces, our actions, and things like that. And eventually, we have multiple SKUs of GitHub. What I talked to you about is predominantly is GitHub.com, but we also have GHES. We have GitHub Enterprise Cloud and GHAE. And today, the developer actually has a different developer life cycle for each of these, and we continue to work to make sure that the same developer life cycle works for all of the SKU, making sure that it's easier for developer and as well as for our customer, there is a feature parity. With this, I want you to remember that we have built a great automation processes which empowers our engineers. It is their experiences, their productivity. It really helps us get the best out of the work, best work out of them. We've created a lot of transparency. Everything is documented, and that transparency leads to the trust and community building and inner sourcing within our company. And finally, we measure what matters and continue to improve. And hopefully you'll find some of the things from here to apply to your own application building. We continue to talk about these on our blog, github.blog, and the categories engineering, where you can see most of these things that we continue to come back and talk to our developers. Thank you. Thanks for staying with me in this session. We'll move to Q&A.
What an insightful talk, Sanjay. Thank you very much for that, especially the bits on empowering engineers and building processes around it, transparency and measuring for impact and what matters. Wonderful learnings for all of us here. We got some amazing questions from you, from our viewers. And first up is, you got so much of diverse experiences across different organizations, startups, enterprises. What is that one thing that really stands out and you like about being at GitHub?
Yeah, I mean, I like so many things about being at GitHub. You're really making me choose the one and only one thing. The one thing when I joined GitHub that was really unique was how much love you get when you wear the GitHub branded clothing, or you care about the GitHub branded goodies. It's I'm so proud that, look, this is what really happens. And when you look at it, sometimes you wonder, is it accidental? But really, it's not accidental, as I've sort of learned about it. And this is the one thing that I like about it. A lot of the times I go in and talk about, hey, if we do this, this is what it means to us. This is what it means to our business. And I get corrected. Whatever we do, it has to be centered around the developer. What does it mean to the developer? What are we doing to improve their experience, their productivity, and make them work in a global environment where there is a community, there is a trust. And so that is the biggest one thing that is different. We are totally and 100% focused only on developers.
I'm sure everybody hearing here would be super delighted to learn that every day we think about them so much. Sanjay, also from the whole journey and the workflow that you shared, what's one challenge or like a cultural or a technical challenge that you would want to share with folks hearing on the DevOps channel as an inspiration of what they can look at and how can they overcome that?
Yeah, so GitHub is, a good one. There's lots of challenges, right? I mean, a company which is growing, we talked about 56 million users going to go up to 100 million in 2025. Well, there is no dearth of challenges that we see day in, day out, right? But if you think about it, what has been for the last 6 to 12 months, what has been a big challenge? The one thing that our company is going through is from a small company to a medium-sized large company, where a lot of enterprises, a lot of communities depend on their day-to-day work. And what we found was that as a team, while we were doing the right set of things, each one was following their own, process, practices. And we have now become intentional about making sure that there is a uniformity without missing out the empowerment for each team to do what they want to do. So you saw the public roadmap, right? This was not something that we used to do. We started doing it because, that really tells our customers that what they can depend on. And the same thing internally. You saw SLO. We still provide each team to sort of say that what they want to measure, but at the same time, it is a process that we have developed now across the teams, and we meet at the highest level of leadership to make sure what is happening on one side, the other side learns about it and quickly reacts to it. So that's really has been one of the biggest, cultural changes, so to say, that we are going through. But as I said, there's no dearth of challenges at GitHub.
Amazing to hear that. And yes, absolutely. We got one more question for you. And
am I also allowed to ask you a question?
Absolutely.
Yes,
please go ahead.
All right. You talked about how great you felt about the talk. I mean, that one number that I care the most, I want to ask you if you actually, paid attention to it. How long does it take for a developer when the PR is ready to deploying it to the production site?
I got this. 3.5 hours, you had said.
3.5 hours every time?
No, not every time.
Well, you got my question. So I didn't ask you about the reliability, but yes, it's 3.5 hours and the 90% reliability. So yeah, the way you want, you may want to take something from, Mohit now.
Yeah, I'm gonna take a goodie. Thank you so much, Sanjay. Again, it was such an insightful session. Just loved having you here and sharing the whole workflow with everyone, how GitHub is built using GitHub. Folks, remember, Sanjay is going to stay with us in discussion. So head over to discussions and ask all your other questions from Sanjay. Thank you, Sanjay, again. Bye-bye.
Thank you, and look forward to engaging with you on the discussion channel.
Sure. So I just won a goodie. Where's my goodie?
Hey, you winner. I'm going to miss my goodie. There you go.
Yay, I got it. Awesome. Thank you.
Okay, let's jump into the next session for today. We are going to talk about how you can create your own GitHub apps and your own GitHub Actions. And we're going to share examples of resources to help you with those so that you can make your own action or your own app. And we have got Shashank Bansal in the house, the product manager for GitHub. Shashank has 15 plus years of building and managing software, and having lived through the transformation of multi-year releases to on-demand deployment, Shashank shares a deep sense of value in sharing and collaborating. A very good friend of mine. I'm really looking forward to hearing from you, Shashank.
I'm also very excited about this session. It actually extends the capabilities that GitHub gives and take it forward to make it suit your needs. And is also one of the biggest ways folks contribute to the community. So Shashank, over to you. Folks, remember, engage with us on discussions. Mohit and I will bring the questions for you from discussions. Over to you, Shashank.
Thank you, Divya. Thank you, Mohit. And welcome everybody to Satellite India 2021. As Mohit and Divya shared, what we're going to talk today is how you can create and share your own GitHub apps and GitHub Actions. Before we get to it, my name is Shashank Bansal. I'm a director of product management here at GitHub, taking care of the GitHub ecosystem. And that's really the platform that enables you to contribute your solutions and help the community at large. To start a journey with, let's probably ask, what's in it for us? What's in it for you? Why do we have the ecosystem? And a core part of GitHub's philosophy is to enable choice. So we provide choice to end users, provide choice to you as a consumer, so that you can customize your workflows, you can customize your software development journey with the tools and services you love. GitHub provides you a bunch of them built in, but you can bring in your own, complement it, enhance the workflow, make the best out of it. And that choice is part of that choice is offered by you. So you can contribute, you can come in and help us build that choice for planet scale developer community. And that's what the ecosystem team focuses on, enabling you to do that. And that is where apps and actions come in play. While you do that, you build a brand for yourself. The GitHub community knows you as the developer, as the GitHub handle. add value to software development across the board, and build your own business. Brand implies business. That's what's in it for you, and that's why it's important for GitHub as well. It's a complete win-win, making each other successful on the journey. Before I get further into apps and actions, how about we try and build something? What better way to start our talk, to start our session than by doing something hands-on? So I picked up a problem here. The problem I picked up that we want to solve together is, we saw GitHub release in the keynote. We saw GitHub release being the platform to release what we are building. What I want to solve today is, whenever a GitHub release is created, I'm in the business, my software is a library. So I want to compile that library, build it, and upload the built artifacts automatically to my release. So when I really publish the release, the built artifacts go out. That's what I want to do. And I want to enable an actions workflow, do this automatically. I don't want to do this manually. I start researching about it. I come across the GitHub CLI, an extremely powerful command line utility that works with all the GitHub resources, including GitHub release. So using GH release create or GH release upload, I can modify existing GitHub releases and using a command line. So I decided to use that. What better way than doing it than running just a command? And I sketch out my workflow. It's a high-level workflow actions YAML that I've sketched out, which does the build that tests my library automatically. And after it does, I'm going to add a command to upload the release using GH release upload. But I want to focus on this part of that workflow. Before I can really use the GitHub CLI, I need to set that up on my runner. I need to download it, install it, make sure it's ready so that I can use the command. And this is what we are going to build today. We are going to build an action that does this setup, that creates this and prepares my runner to be able to run the command. A quick look into the constituents of this command. So it consists of a repository. It's a public repository in which I will share my actions code, followed by the version I want to use, represented as a tag, and the inputs that my action needs. Without further ado, let me jump and let's start trying to build this together. So I'll go to my browser here. Just give me a sec. Maybe I need to share things again. Okay. So I'm in my browser here, and to start building my action, the first thing I do is there is this JavaScript action template repository, and the actions workflow, GitHub has already shared this template repository to simplify everybody start building their own actions. I'm not going to rely on this. I'm going to use this template and clone it into my own repository that I modify into the action I need. Make sure you mark it public. The actions repositories need to be public so the action runners can access them. I have already done that and created this repository in that process. Note, I call that example setup GH, and it's generated from the JavaScript action. Once I have this, there are really 3 files that I go modify to prepare my action. The first file, which is important, is what is called actions.yaml. It's really the declaration of my action. So you note I provide a name to my action, and then I just give an input to what are the versions that I will expect end users to provide me. I've given a default value in case the version is not provided, I will install 1.2.0. And So that's really the actions YAML. So I update the YAML file for name, description, branding, and inputs. So that's the first change that I make. The second file I need to change is what is the JavaScript that runs my action. So basically the core heart of my actions. And update this code to really do that download and install. The Actions SDK provides me a bunch of packages. So in this case, I'm using Core and Tool Cache as the two packages that I'm going to rely on to give me a utilities, to give me ready-to-use functions to simplify my actions code. Like, for example, in this case, when I want to download from a URL, I want to do curl, the tool cache gives me download tool as a function. So I don't have to write my own code to actually download. Similarly, I have the extract function available to do the unzip, to do unzip or extract it from a tar file. And then the core module gives me operating system manipulations, like I finally add it to the path. So when I say gh release after that, the runner finds the GitHub CLI path. And just by these small lines of code, it practically look like pseudocode written here, I have my end-to-end action running. It's completely functional. There's Node.js script I can run outside in an action, and it will do the job. Last but not the least, I want to give a good README file to my repository so that anybody who lands on this repository understands what the action does and what it's about. That's it. So I have my action up and running. I have it built. Now is the time to share it further. To share it, I have a hint here that I can really share it on the Marketplace. I will start creating the release. You see, the GitHub automatically parses the actions repository, understands, shows you what it will look like. And I need to give a category, let's call it utilities for this one, and give it a release title, and I can publish this release. Once I do that, my action would be live on the marketplace, like, for example, the Sentry action is. And the README file that we created is automatically shown here to help end users understand my action better. So that's it. We did it. We have an action built. And we use the cross-platform. It's cross-platform. It works on Linux and Windows and Mac. We used community tooling. We used the libraries available. We didn't have to write a lot of code ourselves, and we contributed it back. We are enhancing the entire GitHub community while using what they have. Wasn't that simple? That's a complete action built right from scratch in 10-15 minutes that we spent. Let's change tracks. So now that we have built something, let's zoom out, look at our integration journey with GitHub overall. And as you would understand, and like any software, it consists of plan, build, and release. In terms of planning, GitHub provides 3 ways to integrate with GitHub. There's GitHub app, OAuth app, and GitHub action. We just built the GitHub action. To understand the GitHub app better, a simple way to think about it, it's a bot, and completely autonomous execution entity that can independently communicate with the GitHub resources. Event-driven actors that are responding to events happening on GitHub. You maintain and operate it on your compute, and it just responds to events that are coming in. It gets its own fine-grained permissions, and that's what helps it be very effective and powerful. We probably don't have time today to go deep into building GitHub apps, but I want to point you to Probot. So it's a framework available that helps you build GitHub apps. There are a set of example GitHub apps shared with you with code available. So you head to probot.github.io, and it will give you all the utilities, all the help available to build your own GitHub app. If you want to know more, there is a complete demo day series that we did earlier this year. It's available on YouTube and on the Partner Center. So you can look at that step-by-step video, step-by-step guide that helps you build GitHub apps further. Second up, let's talk about OAuth apps. So OAuth apps, I call them as authorizations for third-party services and clients. Anywhere that you need to say login as GitHub, and then the client and the service can operate as the user, that's where we use GitHub app, OAuth apps. Sorry, excuse me. Examples being, you want to plug in an IDE and say, hey, I want my code to be synced up. So whenever there's GitHub Desktop, GitHub CLI, VS Code, all of those use OAuth apps behind the scenes. They're not as powerful as GitHub apps. They don't get fine-grained permissions. It's really the user permission that's getting mimicked and given to the client, but very effective when it's just about logging in like a user, operating as a user. And last up, GitHub Actions. Essentially, I call them as independent units of work that can run headlessly, execute on computes not owned by you. So they will run it on GitHub runners that could be owned by GitHub or the customer to do an explicit amount of work. Like we set up the GitHub CLI, and then we had another action to upload the release. So there are two good examples of actions. Well, how end users use it is they chain together a series of these actions for an end-to-end purpose. So that's really GitHub Actions for you. Anecdotally, this is a view of volume between these three. We see most GitHub Actions being built in terms of numbers. On the marketplace, there are close to 8,000 GitHub Actions and 400 GitHub apps. And that's not a testimony of their power. That's just a testimony of the amount of effort it takes to build them, the amount of operational cost it takes to run them. Arguably, GitHub apps are way more powerful, way more, you can do more amount of things. You can bring in your own compute, you can bring in your own logic that can help developers. But GitHub Actions are those simple things that help you get started quickly and interact with an external system via APIs or CLI. OAuth apps, yeah, that's really the smallest number of the lot, but they're very effective for the purpose they have. You may ask me, okay, great, I understand all three, but which is the one that I should use? So I'm going to leave you with this small cheat sheet of sorts comparing GitHub Actions with GitHub Apps. Right? Both of them are event-driven actors. GitHub Action workflows trigger in when events happen. GitHub Apps respond to events on GitHub. But how do they compare is essentially on the screen. Let me just quickly walk through it. GitHub Actions run on GitHub runners, compute not owned by you. So whenever your solution can practically run independently on a runner, you would use that. They interact with other systems outside GitHub via API or CLI. It's not a lot of heavyweight code running within the GitHub Action. Whereas GitHub apps are fully functional web apps, fully functional solutions that you can host on the cloud and respond to events from GitHub. So for long-running solutions, for more heavyweight solutions, GitHub apps. For simple, lightweight interactions, GitHub Actions. GitHub Actions run headlessly. They don't have a UI. Whereas in most cases, what we have seen is GitHub apps bring their own UI. Once you host a web app, you also bring in a web page with it, which can have user interaction, which can show you results, which can add value to the processing that you get. Most GitHub Action workflows are stateless. You don't store a lot of data. You don't have data storage beyond what you can interact over API and CLI. But with GitHub apps, there are databases at play. There's a lot of storage. So that's basically your solution ends up having persistent data. The most critical part of the difference, GitHub apps works with a fixed set of permissions decided by GitHub. So we pass a GitHub token to the action, and that token has a fixed set of permissions. It can run on any execution workflow. So any repo which includes your action will be able to run that. GitHub apps have a fine-grained permission model. You can really say what permission does my app need and build that confidence with end consumers. You need not have all the permissions that you need to have. And there's an administrative workflow. Enterprises love that, to say it can only run on repositories after it's installed by an admin. So more control for administrators there. And last but not the least, GitHub apps are standalone. They do one thing at a time. Actions can be chained together to fulfill a bigger purpose. The next part of our journey, the build journey. So GitHub gives you a set of resources out there in terms of docs, SDKs, APIs, webhooks. I want to particularly highlight the SDKs. So there's octokit.github.io. When you land there, you will find a bunch of SDKs managed by the community. So there's the Go SDK, there's the Python SDK that simplify how you can interact with GitHub and empower your solutions. And not just that, so there is Partner Center at GitHub. So it's available on partner.github.com. It is a collation of resources, a collation of all the examples, all the presentations that you have to help you build, integrate, and extend. So it's built together by partners like you. So you can go join the partner program and get access to all the resources collated across the world and interact with other partners as well. Let's move to the last part of the journey. So we have planned what we want to build. We have built it using the resources that we have. Now is the time to release. So we looked at it earlier with the actions. That's where the marketplace, so GitHub provides what we call the GitHub Marketplace. I call it the window to the world for your tools. Whenever you have a solution, whenever you have a tool and you want to share it, the marketplace is the means to do that. There are 400 plus apps and close to 7,600 actions on marketplace already and growing over time. So you list your listing, and listing on marketplace is pretty simple. All you have to do is fill up the description for your app and action, and it goes live on the marketplace, like we saw. Not just that, you can also do a self-serve verification for your organization. It's a means for you to really get credit, really attest on your apps and actions being built by you. You see, it's easy on GitHub for somebody to say, I published this, and the name of the handle might look very similar to your name or handle. And as an end consumer, you might get confused differentiating that. So by doing the publisher verification, you get the credit, you make sure your organizational identity is verified by GitHub. And that gets transferred to your apps and actions as well, giving you that extra level of credibility, that extra level of proof for authenticity. And that is what we had today. So thank you for joining Satellite. Thank you for coming in, listening to me. I hope I was able to help you with understanding the layer of apps and actions, and hope to see your apps actions come on the marketplace. Thank you.
Thank you, Sashank. This was great lay of land of apps and actions. Let's start with questions. So the first question that I think folks would want to know is, any GitHub integrations that you really recommend?
You see, as GitHub, our platform is really to enable all of you get the best out of it, right? So when you write a tool or solution, it's as important as the one GitHub wrote itself. So my recommendation would not be based on use a solution A versus B. Head to the marketplace, search for what you need. If you need a CI tool, just look for CI solutions on the marketplace and choose for yourself. We are an open source company. We enable everyone to get a fair lay of the land. And I want you to make your own choices based on what works for you. So I'm not going to name integrations, but I'm going to preach what you should do.
Wow, that's pretty smart. And we got another one on the same lines for you, Shashank. How do I know about quality of an app?
Yeah, great question. So that's actually something that comes to me very often, right? Like there are, like I said, there are 400 apps, 7,000 actions. Which one is better than the others? And you see, going by the open source principles again, it's really about you rating them, you vetting them to say which one works better, which one gives you the best support. At the end of the day, you want to use an app or an action that's functional and supported, that will get an update in case you hit an issue on, which is what we thrive for. So if you hit the marketplace, you will first of all see the publisher verification badge that I talked about, which tells you that the publisher is genuine, that publisher's identity is verified by GitHub. If you drop them an email, if you reach out to them, you will get a response. And besides that, there are indicators like stars, indicators like update time that you can see. And just like you would choose an open source library, you should look at apps and actions as open source libraries to choose from. And that's what I mean by you make your own decisions. We enable you with information, but decision is really yours.
So we spoke about from a consumer point of view, when I'm using or wanting to use apps and actions. If I think from a contributor point of view or as a publisher, what are the ways that I can ensure my app or my action gets the maximum footfall or more people get to use it?
Yeah. So pretty much the first, okay, I'll maybe be preachy here for this one. If you are writing an app or an action, I would advocate you to build a good listing page. Write a good README for your action. Write a good listing page with screenshots so that end users can understand what you do, can give you feedback on what you do. Maintain a repository on GitHub where consumers can open issues against your app or action, can give you feedback through that means. And last but not the least, get that publisher verification badge. So there's a minimum level of curation that GitHub can help you with. By doing those three things, besides the regular ones of more front doors for yours, so blogging about it, writing about it, you get more eyeballs on it. And by giving the right level of support, by helping the community, you will be the popular app or action.
Thanks, Shashank. You were very loud and clear that we need to stick to the fundamentals. And thanks a lot for the insightful answers to all the questions. Viewers, Shashank is not going anywhere. He's going to stick with you for another 30 minutes, but in GitHub discussions, so you know where to catch him and get all your queries answered. Shashank, we'll see you next time. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yeah, thanks. Bye.
Bye, Shashank. So much good stuff so far, but there is more to come. Coming up on DevOps channel is a session on MLOps and how GitHub uses GitHub to collaborate. Later on the OSS channel is how to GitHub like a boss, as well as the state of UI and UX in open source. Both channels will have a great closing sessions from our very own Manish Sharma.
Yes, and we're loving all the comments, all the activity that is happening on Twitter right now. So keep tweeting to us at GitHub India, #GitHub Satellite, and tell us what you are most excited about seeing today. Tell us your favorite moments. We are all ears to hear what you got to say, and we are going to comment on everything that you're talking about.
Yeah, or also maybe share how you're watching us. So share snippets of where you are, where you're watching us from. So moving to the next session is a lightning talk about accelerating inner dev loop with Kubernetes applications with Scaffold, and how Scaffold can help you create a production-ready CI/CD pipeline. Sharing all about that is Ashish Chaudhary, a senior developer from Citi. He's an active blogger, a technical writer who obviously loves Java, Spring, DevOps, and the cloud. And he is a big advocate of open source technologies.
Remember to engage with us on discussions. With that, Ashish, take it away.
Yeah. So hi everyone. Welcome to GitHub Satellite. My name is Ashish Chaudhary, and thanks for such a great introduction. And so since this is a lightning talk, I have to be a little bit quick, but I will also make sure that you understand the concept that I'm trying to convey the message in this lightning talk. So the topic of this lightning talk is how you can use a tool called as Scaffold. This is an open source tool developed by Google. So, you can accelerate your inner development loop. And as it was explained in the introduction, that I work for a financial services company, Citigroup. I work there as a senior developer. And let's just quickly go through the agenda for this talk. So this is what we are going to cover in this presentation. So first we will talk about application development inner and outer loop, and then we will talk about related to one of the concept is how is the current developer experience with Kubernetes, and how Scaffold can help that improving that developer experience. And then we will definitely talk about Github Actions, and there will be a demo how you can build and deploy a Java application using Github Actions and Scaffold. And then there will be some references which you can, after this talk, you can go through for your to get some understanding on the topic. And so this is pretty much we are going to cover today. So let's get started. So let me talk about the application development inner and outer loop. So this is not a new concept. The term may look like a bit new, but the way we have been developing application over the years as a developer, it's pretty much the same. So when you start working on an application, or you work on a story item, so you are in your inner development loop. So basically this is where you are you are doing coding, you are building, testing, and verifying everything in your local if possible in your case. And so most of the time we as a developer spend time in the inner development loop. And then obviously when you feel comfortable that your changes are fine, you can share your changes with other. You do a git push and merge your pull request, and then your entire CI/CD pipeline comes into the picture. So this is where your outer development comes into the picture. And obviously you are doing a bunch of things there. You are running your integration functional test and your sonar checks, code quality checks, and then finally the application gets deployed. So with this being in the, we've been doing this for all the years. So how does it changes when Kubernetes come into the picture? So these are some of the steps that we as a developer typically have to go through once we start to thinking about making application cloud native. So like for instance, if you are you have to build your application image, you have to tag it and then push it, and obviously you have to create a Kubernetes manifest. And if there is any change, and you have to manually update in most of the cases your Kubernetes manifest so that it points to the correct image version. And then obviously you have to deploy and test and verify your changes. So if anything goes wrong in any of these steps, and if you see your changes are not correct, or if you have to repeat that entire life cycle. So there is so Kubernetes introduced a lot of complexity into the development lifecycle, and related to that is like, so if we as a developer, like how do we feel about the developer experience that we have with Kubernetes in general? So let's talk about the Kubernetes experience that we as a developer feel, whether how we feel while interacting with the Kubernetes in general as a developer. So as a developer, the primary thing that I I mean, interested in, I want to build product or add features, add exciting new features to the product or something like that. So most of this is related or revolves around coding. And as a developer, I might not be interested in knowing Kubernetes. So even though it will definitely be going a good skill set to have, but as a developer, do I really need to know how my application is going to be containerized or where it is going to be deployed? So Kubernetes is definitely a great tool, but there are some hurdles that we as a developer need to understand. We also need to understand that developers are not Kubernetes experts. And this is one of a fun way of looking at it. So if someone say that developing application with Kubernetes is easy, so I will respectfully disagree. It is not easy. So so as we have seen in the previous slide, so there are a lot of additional steps added. So with that being in picture, it is definitely not easy. So we as a developer, we need better tooling so that can help us to handle this lot of boilerplate part of building, pushing, and deploying. So there has to be some better tooling around instead of we going into the reinvent wheel sort of mindset and develop things of our own. So this is where Scaffold comes into the picture, and it helps developer in automating a lot of those stuffs. And so Scaffold is really a powerful tool. It's an open source tool. You can use it if you are facing such challenges. And the primarily the problem that it solves is like how you can handle the workflow of your. So typically your build, push, deploy cycle gets automated with help of Scaffold. And as a developer, you can focus on the most important part, which is writing code. So you can go back and focus on solving real life problems and all those things. And so let's get into a little bit into Scaffold, like what is the architecture of Scaffold. So as you can see, Scaffold, the thing that I like most about Scaffold is that it has a pluggable architecture. You can pick a build tool of build or deploy tool of your choice. You may be using Docker in your local, and then you might be using something build pack or Jib or Maven plugin for your deployment. And in your local, you might be using kubectl for deployment. And then for your production scenario, you are using Helm. So it has all those features. You can pretty much play with around any build tool of your choice. And it has its own tagging strategy to tag the images. And so let's talk about like how Scaffold works, like what are the things that how the tool as a tool it works. So if you look at this diagram, so at the bottom, if you see, there are two commands, Scaffold dev and Scaffold run. So these are the most used command with Scaffold. So when you run Scaffold dev, what actually happens is that it has its own file watcher mechanism. So it looks for any changes in your source code, and if it feels that there is a need to compile, then it will do the whole compilation of the application. Otherwise, it has the capability, or it has that intelligence, so that it can not only just sync the file and restart your code, and it can skip the build and push part. So this can accelerate your inner development loop. And obviously you can not only use for local development, you can do it for remote deployment, like for if you're using GKE, for instance, then you can definitely use Scaffold run command. So Scaffold run is a sort of end-to-end CI/CD pipeline sort of command. So it runs your entire workflow at once, while Scaffold dev is a continuous mode command, in which it also stream logs, which is a really cool feature. And once your pods are started, you can in your local, you can definitely see the application is get started and up and running. So this is how Scaffold typical workflow with Scaffold is. And this is the Scaffold configuration files, which is how Scaffold understand like what it needs to do when you run the Scaffold dev or Scaffold run command. So for instance, in this image, you can see that I'm using Jib as a Maven plugin. So Jib allows you to containerize your application. So you input is your source code and the output is your containerized image. And then with kubectl, we are deploying. So this is how Scaffold configuration works. So lights, camera, and GitHub Actions. So GitHub Actions is, I think, one of the cool features that within the comfort of your GitHub repository, you can create your CI/CD pipeline. And there is a great marketplace available for, to choose any GitHub action available there based upon your need. So before I jump to my demo, I just wanted to give a quick understanding about the how GitHub Actions or what are the main components in that. So it's mainly work on the event mechanism. Whenever any, for example, whenever someone there is any pull request or push change is done on your branch, then it triggers your workflow. So workflow, typically you have a YAML syntax file in which you define your jobs, and then you have some steps and actions which gets executed. Actions are basically such as whether you wanted to check out the repository or install some tool, like for example Java, and then finally there is a runner, which is your server instance where everything gets run. This entire workflow get executed, and it and you can see the logs in the GitHub repository itself, whether the actions are successful or not. And so this is a really cool way of creating CI/CD pipeline from your comfort of your ID. So next, I wanted to give a quick demo about how you can create CI/CD pipeline with the comfort of your ID, comfort of your GitHub repository. So this is my GitHub repository, and this repository is a Spring Boot REST application, and it exposes states endpoint. And once you hit the endpoint, it displays Indian states and their capitals. Nothing fancy here. So let me just give you a quick walkthrough of the YAML file. So this YAML file is typically in your .github root directory, and then these are some of the prerequisite required. Like you need since we are deploying to GKE, you need a Google Cloud project and container registry, and Kubernetes Engine API needs to be enabled. And obviously you need to have a GKE cluster, which I already have. And then you need some specific roles for you to be enabled, so that you can push or deploy to using your service account key. Service account key is going to be used as a ID for this deployment. Think of it like as a functional ID or something. So, and this is my GKE cluster. And it's up and running. There are 2 nodes. And yeah, so this is the kubectl command. This is the Cloud Shell environment, and this is my container registry. There is no image available there, but after this deployment, there will be. And these in the environment section, you see that we have defined some secrets, and these secrets are available in the GitHub, defined itself in the GitHub repository in the secret section. And in the job section, as you can see, it runs on Ubuntu latest, which means it's on the Ubuntu machine. And the job, there are steps like checking out repository for master branch, then I'm installing Java. So all the dependency that are required to make this action work is listed over here. Obviously I need Google Cloud SDK so that I can communicate with my GKE cluster, and it requires some service account key and project ID, which are injected as secret at the runtime. And then obviously I need Scaffold to be run the final command. And if you see at the bottom, there is a Scaffold run command. So this will eventually going to kick our entire workflow. And then I will just verify everything with the kubectl get all command. So so what I will try to do now is I will create a pull request. And so in this I'm just going, this pull request will eventually create an event, and I'm just merging my changes from develop to master branch. Actually it should be main branch, sorry about that. So I have just created the pull request, and now so these are the changes that I have done. These are mostly the comments I have added, nothing fancy here. And yeah, so I can now safely merge the pull request. So once I confirm the merge, we will head to the actions tab, and you can see that action that the workflow has kicked in. It is based upon the event, and it has started the deployment. So it will step by step do all the steps that we have defined in the workflow YAML file. So it has already checked out the code, installed Java, and so it will do everything what we have described in the workflow YAML file. And so it's trying to download all the dependency required to make this work. And So yeah, so it's taking its own sweet time. So it's able to connect to cluster. Yeah. So this is the main. So this scaffold run, what it will do now, it will build the image, containerize our application, and also push it to a container registry, to our GCR registry. So it has started the build right now. So it is downloading the Maven dependency, and soon after that, it will create a containerized image of our application. And once that is done, it will push and deploy it to GK using everything using Scaffold. So Scaffold run commands is doing everything here. So as you can see, the image is created, and as you can see, pods are also started. So we will quickly check whether the image is pushed to GCR or not. Yeah, so image is already pushed, so we are good. I think the workflow is completed and everything looks green, which is really great. And now one of the verification we'll do in Cloud Shell, we will just run the same kubectl command, and this should give us the correct output. And so what I'm looking for is the external IP, because the service type that I have used is load balancer, so that it is exposed for external access. So I will just copy the IP address and just hit the URL, and yeah, so this is the expected output. This is pretty much we were expecting, and this actually completes our demo. So what we have learned is in this demo is that we have deployed the application to GKE cluster, and this is the entire CI/CD workflow we have created just now. So these are some of the references that you can go through after this lightning talk. The source code is available, and one article that you can go through if you wanted to know more about Scaffold, and some Scaffold documentation, and Scaffold GitHub repository if you want to go through. And these are some of the way you can connect with me. I'm available on Twitter if you want to follow me for some awesome Java or tech related stuff. And this is my GitHub username and my blog URL, and also available on the professional networking site, LinkedIn. So thank you very much. I'm really grateful for this opportunity, and I wanted to thank the entire GitHub team. So thank you. So I will see you in the discussions now. Till then, yeah, thank you.
Wow, Mohit, that was a great lightning talk, isn't it? Connecting inner loop with the outer loop, as well as how Scaffold can help with your complete CI/CD pipeline. I hope folks, a lot of you got insights on how you can do that too. Remember, Ashish is with us in discussions, so go ahead and connect with him, connect with others who are using Kubernetes and Scaffold, and learn from there on discussions. Mohit, I had one question for you. I know you are a solution specialist at GitHub. Why not share an insight? And if you do it well, I'll give you a goodie. Share an insight, tell us about a specific industry which has been able to leverage GitHub like for unique use cases.
Absolutely. Okay, so I'm going to tell you a specific use case for financial services industry. So typically the banks and financial BFSI customers in India, they lean on a lot of ISV solutions, right? Who build specific IP for them. And what happens is that the banks and FSI customers have a requirement to collaborate with not just the developers within their own organization, but also with the developers in the ISV's organizations, right? And hence, you can guess now that the requirement for them is to really provide these two set of developers a secure platform to collaborate on the piece of code that is getting developed. And for that, GitHub Enterprise is the perfect fitting solution.
Awesome. You get a Hue bot for that.
Woohoo!
I don't want to get rid of the Hue bot. Yay!
And with that, we're going to get into our next session. A second rapid fire lightning talk on workflow dispatch and how the automation has been in the past, present, and future. story about discovering a faster way to develop internal tools with GitHub Actions using workflow dispatch. We got Vishnu Bharti in the house. He's a software engineer at Hasura. He loves building developer tools and has spent a lot of years of his career doing that at scale. He regularly blogs at vishnubharti.codes. And guess what? He munches chocolates while coding. That's the secret to the wonderful software that he is writing. And we're going to hear right from Vishnu. Vishnu, super excited to hear what you have got in store for us. Here it is. Take it away.
Hello. Hi. I hope you are having a great day at Satellite. Today we are going to speak about workflow dispatch in GitHub Actions and how it's helping to do automation for the past, present, and future. Cool. A little bit about myself. I'm Vishnu Bharati. I currently work as an engineer at Hasura, building developer tools for developers who are building developer tools. And you can find me on the internet as Scriptnal. And here's a really fancy picture of me having Power Rangers wallpaper and BSNL modem back in the 2000s. All right. Cool. So today's agenda is we'll first see what workflow dispatch in GitHub Actions is. We'll see some of the internals and dev tools at Hasura. Then we'll talk about what I call the past, present, and future problem and a solution to it. Cool. Okay, what is workflow dispatch? Workflow dispatch is a special kind of workflow in GitHub Actions, which you can write that will take a set of inputs and run it manually whenever you like it from the GitHub UI. So if you are familiar with GitHub Actions, you might have seen this UI where you can see the workflow runs for any event that triggers a workflow. But workflow dispatch has this special UI where you can provide a set of inputs that you like and press the run workflow button to run the workflows whenever you like. Cool. So it's kind of like a manual thing that you trigger, right? You might ask what it has to do with automation, but yeah, we'll kind of see what the kind of power it gives. Cool. Okay, so how do we write a workflow dispatch? First, it's like mentioning, it's like any other workflows that you write in your GitHub Actions. You just create a YAML file and have a name, and in the on section you will say workflow dispatch. Usually if it's like a pull request or something, some other event, you will mention the event here, right? Instead of that, we will mention workflow dispatch and give a set of inputs. The input section here will, whatever you are giving in this input sections will exactly translate to that in the UI, where your users can actually give their inputs. And after that, it's the normal thing where you can give a bunch of logic that based on your inputs that your GitHub workflow can execute. So here, so this piece of YAML, I took it from our production code, which we use to manually trigger previews for pull requests. So the inputs that it takes is the link to the pull request and the commit SHA, from which should be taken for the preview app to deploy. If you leave it empty, it will just take the latest commit SHA. So you can kind of mention all these kind of conditions there. And the workflow takes it and deploys a review app for that pull request and comments on the pull request like this. You might be wondering what to do with these kind of things, right? Like you can just trigger the job whenever you want. But the thing is, once you have this core logic that you can run whenever you like, you can build on top of it. For example, we built a slash command kind of interface on top of workflow dispatch. Basically, whenever someone comments /Heroku deploy on a pull request, we would actually trigger the workflow dispatch via the GitHub API, and the workflow dispatch runs and comments like this. That's why we had the comments there. So this kind of workflow is usually normal in Hasura, where we kind of comment stuff on the pull request itself to get like immediate feedback. Okay, so here are some list of internal tools at Hasura. We have a review app for pull requests. We have a pull request shadower, which we'll be seeing next. We have some more bots. If you see, most of them are written as workflow dispatches. You might be wondering why, right? That's to understand that we'll need to understand how we were writing bots and internal tools before. Before workflow dispatches, what we used to do is we used to have GitHub webhooks configured, and whenever we want an internal tool, for example, let's say we want a tool that deploys preview apps or pull requests, we will write a Node.js server or any other server and host it on somewhere. For example, we have a Node.js server hosted on Vercel, and we had another tool written in Python and hosted on Kubernetes. So if you want to add something new, you either need to go and edit them or create a new server and host it on something and configure webhooks to be received from there. The thing with this is all these environments might be limiting. For example, it might be hard to do Docker builds on Node.js server, right? Or running on Vercel. So because it's stateless. So the whole it was causing kind of friction where you need to do all this hosting and creating new servers every time. So this is the current state of internal tools at Hasura. Whenever someone wants to write an internal tool, we just write a workflow dispatch first and manually give it to some developers who are interested in running it, and they will run it. They can trigger it from the browser, and at the same time, once we are okay with the automation, what we will do is we just run one server on Vercel that kind of handles all webhooks and kind of delegates the request to workflow dispatches. So this kind of workflow, if you want to add a new automation, you don't need to write a new server. Instead, you just write a YAML file and just run a workflow dispatch. Within an instant, you can start triggering it manually, or whenever you are feeling confident, you can just merge a PR in your delegation server that triggers them for your webhooks. Okay, up next is what I call the past, present, and the future problem. We'll try to understand this by seeing a scenario that happens at Hasura every day. So Hasura has a GraphQL engine open source project, which is being used by a lot of people. And also we have a commercial product which uses the open source GraphQL engine code inside that in order to make sure that changes made in open source does not break anything in our commercial product. We have to we have a monorepo which actually syncs code from the open source project and kind of syncs it back. We'll see the workflow here. Whenever an open source contributor tries to contribute to GraphQL engine, they just open a PR first. After that, what we do is we have a workflow dispatch that shadows their pull request. Shadowing essentially means transforms their code so that it's in the right places in our monorepo directory structure, and opens PR on the monorepo. This monorepo is internal and private. So what happens next is a Hasura team member reviews the code and the CI runs, and if the change seems to break our commercial version, we'll fix those things. The Hasura, basically the Hasura team member will be working on the shadowed PR. Once that's merged back to the monorepo, it means we have a push workflow in GitHub Actions that sync back the commit only to the GraphQL Engine OSS repo, and we have a bot that says thank you to the open source contributor. So this is the whole workflow where the code comes in from the OSS and gets into our private repo and goes back into our GraphQL Engine OSS repo. Cool. So if you take this tool, the past is like whenever I want to create this tool, the past is like I want to make this tool work for already open pull requests, and I want to make this tool work for the early adopters. Whenever I'm building that tool, I might be getting feedback instantly, and the ultimate goal is to automate it. Whenever some new pull requests come in, before we had that automation in place, the pull request shadow in place, we'll want to do that. First, we naively went with a pull request approach and figured out that it kind of restricts us from some things. The thing is, if I'm doing on pull requests, you can just shadow pull requests that are coming in after the automation is in place. Before, you can't trigger it for already existing pull request, or whenever you're working on it, and if you want to just release it to some people in your org, we can't do it with the on pull request. It's completely futuristic. And even rerunning and hotfixes, you need to merge your automation code to main branch and kind of get feedback from there. But if you take workflow dispatches, since it's manual, you can just put your link to the already existing PRs and you can run the automation. For early adopters, you can share the links before sharing it to everyone and kind of do it. And I'll tell more about the early adoption and the hotfixes part after this slide. And of course, the shadow PR, as I told, will have that delegation server that you can kind of use to get the webhooks and automatically shadow new PRs. If you see this, right, the hotfixes and the other part, the core thing that I love about workflow dispatches is that it has this branch-based workflows. You can trigger workflow dispatches from any branch you like, which means that if I have had that automation in place and if I want to do a bug fix, I don't want to wait for it to be merged. I can just quickly write a branch and have that bug fix in that and give it. Even for rolling out new automation, we can have this. We can have the code in a separate branch, and we can kind of give that to the early adopters and ask them to trigger from this branch, so that you get this, they get to use it before anyone else. This branch-based workflow had been very helpful for us, especially in order to test out and stuff. So in summary, I would say workflow dispatch is awesome. Definitely give it a try. It might be seem like a manual thing, but I would say that the future of automation is the ability to trigger it manually. It gives a whole lot of flexibilities. So yep, give it a try. Cool. Thank you. I hope you had a good session. Bye.
Well, I loved how he mentioned that future of automation is that it will be triggered manually. What an incremental approach to automation. Great talk. And viewers, you can head over to GitHub discussions and catch him live for next 30 minutes. Get your queries answered. It's a very interesting talk out there which just happened. So just get him on discussions.
And have you checked the OSS channel yet? Karan and Anisha have started Holi early. They're playing Holi and having a blast there. So remember, folks, you can go to the OSS channel as well and check the content out there. As well as attendee survey, we want to hear your feedback. So click on a link below and share all about your feedback and how you're liking GitHub India Satellite. Okay, so coming to the next session, and this is a really interesting topic, a favorite for many, bringing machine learning and operations together, ML Ops, and how data scientists and engineers can start communicating, collaborating better, how to create that workflow. So bringing in is the next session is all about ML Ops using GitHub. As ecosystem gets more complex, deploying ML apps gets harder. Let's understand how can we do that whole ML Ops life cycle in GitHub. Sharing all about that is Shruti Chaturvedi, a backend AI developer at Connexa AI, a Harvard V Code lead technology fellow, a certified Microsoft trainer, a developing AI solutions and leading and part of the, as well as a Stanford ambassador. Really looking forward to this talk by Shruti on ML Ops using GitHub. Over to you, Shruti.
Hello and good morning. Well, we're clocking in at noon, but I hope you had a wonderful morning listening to the amazing sessions we had lined up for GitHub Satellite India. Thanks for tuning into this session. My name is Shruti Chaturvedi, and I am a backend engineer building scalable solutions at Connexa.ai. Imagine a world where teams would not have to spend months trying to recreate experiments their colleagues did. And the good news is, in this session, we'll take a sneak peek right into that world. We'll be looking at GitHub as an amazing tool to build, test, deploy, monitor, and version ML models and assets to allow faster and iterative development. So it's pretty amazing, and let's get started. So ML Ops is essentially an engineering approach to accelerate the adoption of machine learning into your business solutions. And when we are looking at continuous X's in MLOps, there are quite a few. So continuously training your models to achieve better performance and higher accuracy over time. So whether that's through retuning your hyperparameters or changing the base algorithms itself, all of that counts as continuous training. Continuously delivering your updated models to the end users, because that's a crucial step. We then have continuous integration, which is an important concept in DevOps and MLOps alike, which means you're continuously integrating your local changes across to production code, which then gets continuously delivered to the end users. And continuous monitoring to make sure that your data, assets, and pipelines work the way you want. So by using GitHub at the center of MLOps enables building ML models, versioning data and assets, tracking and testing ML experiments, and deploying machine learning solutions super easy. So these are some of the tools and services we will be using to build a binary classification pipeline. So we are using something called a DVC, or a data version control, which is a open source tool available for free to use. And it sits right on top of Git, and we'll be using it to build and version our pipeline. And we'll use GitHub to orchestrate the pipeline and also to enable us to share those versioned assets between different team members. All right, so let's move into the coding now. We will be building a binary classification pipeline, as I said earlier, and we are using a cancer survival data set. All of the code is being hosted by GitHub, and DVC will very beautifully push all of the data pointers onto GitHub on all of the tracked assets as well. Also, we'll be looking at some super cool automation tool called GitHub Workflows to do a lot of the heavy lifting for us, and also solve the problem of comparing performance between different models. With that, let's head over to GitHub. And we will begin by cloning this GitHub repository onto our local system. So this is going to act as our source of truth. And whatever is into the master branch right now is what is onto production. So whatever is here is being supplied to my consumers. And my job as a data scientist who is joining this team is going to be taking this accuracy and making it more accurate, right? And like, it seems pretty feasible. So let's see if we are capable of doing that. Let's switch over and see what do we have. So here we have 3 different scripts, and we'll begin by looking at getData.py. So this is where we are getting our data from and storing it in our local system as Haberman.csv. So let's switch and see how our data looks like. All right, so we have 3 different independent variables and 1 dependent variables. And this is what we are trying to predict, whether a person survived after cancer treatment or not. So all of these are numerical. This is the age of a person, the year in which the operation was conducted. So 1964 here. And the 3rd column is an indication of how spread out the cancer was. And again, 1 means that a person survived and 2 means that it did not. Let's switch back over to VS Code and look into our process data script. So this is where we are taking that dependent variable values of 1 and 2 and encoding that into a more standard format by using a label encoder and transforming it into a 0 and a 1 and storing that into our local system as Haberman process.csv. After that's done, we're going to move into training script. And this is where we are loading our Haberman process.csv, transforming that into a data frame. And then we're running a normalizer just to ensure that all of our independent variables are normalized across their values. So what's into production right now and what my users are receiving is a simple logistic regression model, right? Like, makes sense why the accuracy wasn't so great. And we are pulling in parameters from params.yaml file. So that's a pretty interesting file. Make note of that. We'll be looking at that in a second. We also have a bunch of metrics. We have accuracy, specificity, and sensitivity. And what we are doing with those metrics is dumping them into a metrics.json file. And what this is going to do in the future is help the code reviewers and the mergers to look at metrics.json at a master branch and metrics.json at a different branch, which we are working on, and be able to tell if this is something that they want to merge based on the accuracy and all the metrics. A little bit of continuous delivery aspect here. We are using a GitHub workflow, the super interesting tool that I talked about. We'll be looking at how we have configured that. So as soon as a model is pushed onto master, so as soon as maybe we have a pull request into master, we are going to put the final model into the inference service. So what I'm using is AWS, but it can really be anything. Switch over to params.yaml, and this is where we have defined all of our hyperparameters. You know, we just have 2, but you can define however many you like. And this is where my training data script, or this script right here, is calling my parameters from. So I'll only have to tune them and change them here rather than, you know, switching back and forth between train data and different scripts. Now, how I want to design my pipeline is for all of these steps to run sequentially, getting the data, processing the data, training the data. And also I want a way so that as soon as my parameters change, the training script should run again and produce a new model. So how we have configured that is through DVC pipeline, and this is the pipeline config file, so dvc.yaml. So we have 3 different stages, and all of them are going to run sequentially. And DVC is tracking each of these stages, and it's going to track the outputs and the dependencies of each of these stages together. So as soon as a person runs their pipeline using DVC repro, what DVC is going to do is look into its local cache folder, which we do not have right now since we have not run the pipeline. And it's going to see if a particular script has changed or if a particular data is missing. And DVC is only going to run that stage. So consider that you're gone on a vacation for 2 months and then you return back and params.yaml has changed significantly. So you pull all of your code from GitHub and all you'll have to do is run DVC repro, and it's going to see what has changed, going to run the train data script, going to produce the final model and put that in your local system to ensure that you have the exact same experiment and model that your colleagues do. Let's just take a look at what do we have? Okay, not the command I wanted to run, but never mind. We are going to try again. Okay, let's clear this out, run DVC status just to see where we are in this whole process. Okay, so none of these files are in my cache. So when I run DVC repro, DVC is going to run all of these stages, pull in a new cache folder over here in the DVC folder. And as it goes through the stages, it's going to put the outputs in the cache. So as it's going through different stage, it's going to get the output and put that into cache. Let's see if that happens and if you're lucky enough to see that. Okay, well, it seems that we are kind of lucky. Okay, it seems to be working. And as soon as this is completed, what happens is if I was to turn over to my git ignore, so GitHub is not tracking all of these data files. Instead, what we are pushing onto GitHub is actually pointers to where my data is stored. And that's honestly such a smart way because you have pointers to each of the versions of the assets that you're producing. So now what I want to do is check out a new branch and let's see, let's switch over to train data. Where is it? Okay. And what we want to do is use a multinomial naive Bayes model. You know, since our job is to make this whole system more accurate, let's try out. Okay, perfect. Let's try a multinomial naive Bayes. And here is our classifier. So I'm just going to change it to using multinomial and B. And we're going to comment this line out. So now what I want to do is run DVC repro again. So the training data is the only script that has changed. It's going to reproduce a new model and we'll put that into my cache. And I am going to track that particular new model with GitHub. So as soon as that's done, let's take a screenshot of where we at, or just to make sure that everything remains intact and doesn't break. All right, so let's push this onto Origin. And as we push it onto GitHub, we'll see such a cool thing that's gonna trigger there. So should we switch over to GitHub and see what's going on? All right, head over to the Actions tab. Let's see. Awesome, so something just got queued and it seems to be running a workflow, right? It's like a whole bunch of steps which are running. So where did we configure it and how is this running? All super good questions which we are going to answer. So let's look at the GitHub/workflows and workflow.yaml file. Okay, so a workflow is essentially defining on high level what needs to be done. And what I want is, as soon as I push onto any branch onto GitHub, I want to run this particular script. I want to run this job called run pipeline, which is going to run on an Ubuntu latest machine. And in Ubuntu, all of this machine is actually configured with this container, which has pip install, DVC, etc. And all of this is running on GitHub provision machines called GitHub runners. And GitHub runner is going to be configured with something called, so we are running these steps. And when we have these steps, you're using something called an action. And that's like a predefined sort of term or predefined task that we want to do. So here, what we want to do is check out action/checkout. We want to check out all of our code onto that GitHub runner. So that GitHub runner will be able to look at my code and then do whatever it wants to do. So it has these secrets or GitHub token, which is getting it access to read and writing from my repository, which we'll look at where the secrets are stored. So as soon as it has all the code onto the runner, we are going to install the requirements. We're going to reproduce the entire same pipeline that we did on our local system by using DVC repro. We are going to fetch how the tree is looking like on GitHub. And then there are two things that we're doing, which are super cool, is we're looking at the metrics.json and params.yaml at the master branch. And then we're looking at metrics.json and params.yaml at different branch and comparing them. And then we're sending that as a comment to that particular commit. And what that's going to do is, again, help the code reviewer see and understand if this is something they want to push into production. So this action still seems to be running. Meanwhile, let's switch back and check out. Oh, wait, did it? Okay, we will come back to that in a bit. Let's also check out another branch, and let's try LDA here. So what I'm going to do is let's have a discriminant analysis, right? I'm just going to try out all of my luck and see which model works best and take credit for all of that work. So let's also comment this line out. So again, we are going to do the exact same step. We are going to run DVC repro to ensure that our new model is on us and it's also with our teammates. You know, like working with a team is really important to ensure that everything runs smoothly. Okay, so once that's done, let's add our files and make a git commit. Let's say LDA, not a super descriptive comment, but that works. Git push origin, and let's push it to LDA. So from previous experience, we know what an action should have been triggered, right? Okay, well, not yet. So it just got pushed and it's running. So let it run. We can look to our push that we made onto the multinomial naive-based model and see what do we have on there. We know that we were looking for a comment, right? And let's see what this comment is going to look like. Okay, so it seems that we kind of did worse by using a multinomial naive-based model. And right now I'm a code reviewer, right? I don't want to push this into master because the sensitivity, the accuracy, really not what I like. So I'm just going to do nothing with it, and I'm going to wait on LDA, which my team member has pushed. Okay, so switching back, let's look over to the other deployment file that we have, which is called deploy to AWS. And this is another GitHub workflow. What I want to do here is directly deploy to AWS. So as soon as I push onto master, or the code reviewers push onto master, what this is going to do is take all of the code, package into a zip folder, and then put it directly into AWS. I will not have to do anything, will not have to switch over to AWS, will not have to configure steps over there. Very simple, very nice. So here are certain environment variables which we are using in this workflow. So again, like last time, we are checking out this repository onto the GitHub runner. Then we are creating a zip deployment package using like a standard command line tool. And then we are configuring AWS using something called AWS Actions. And these are actions made available by AWS themselves. So these are open source, you can check them out. And what this particular action is going to do is check out, or it's going to configure the AWS CLI onto the GitHub runner with secrets and access key ID, just to ensure that that GitHub runner has access to all of my resources. So it's able to pull or push or read and write onto different resources. Here it's just S3. And where these secrets are stored is back here onto settings. Switching over to secrets, this is where we have secrets defined, and you can create a new repository secret, and that's how your workflow.yaml file is using these secrets from. So that is for the second script. Let's see what happened with our actions. Okay, so that's good that it got completed. And okay, so this was an LDA branch. Let's see what's going on with this branch. We are hoping to see something better, like something positive at least. So, okay, that's a good sign. We have a quite significant change in accuracy and sensitivity. I don't really care about maybe specificity here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a pull request onto master. And we know that as I compare a pull request with master, our second workflow, the YAML file, which was to deploy to AWS, is going to get triggered. So switching back here, let's refresh this. Okay, not yet. Okay, let's see if we actually merged changes. Okay, it's still. Okay, never mind, we never merged it. Let's confirm the merge. So now we should go back to actions and see something. So that's good. So we have two of our workflows running. We have a deploy to AWS workflow, and we have the one that we were using previously to compare metrics. So as soon as these get completed, we can switch over to AWS and see what's going to happen, right? Let's see. So this is, okay, this got completed, so that's good. Also, one thing that I wanted to show is what would happen if there was an error in your script, right? So if I made an intentional error earlier just for demonstration, and I wanted to show as there is an error, you can go and check into your logs where exactly is that error, and you'll be able to resolve it and run it again. So I absolutely love that continuous testing and monitoring part just to make sure that everything works. So switch over to S3. And let's refresh this. And we should have a new zip deployment file if everything works, including my internet. Okay. Ooh, awesome. I'm so glad. So this is our zip deployment file, and this contains all the updated code. So anyone, I can, if I have some different setup, which is using deployment from here, we can switch back and use that. So that was for me using a very, a big way and a very sort of complete way of doing an end-to-end machine learning pipeline. You are versioning the system, you're testing it, you're configuring it, you're trying and making sure that different algorithms are getting configured and your branch managers are able to see and sort of tell if this is something that they want to go into production. And I really do think that with AWS and with GitHub Actions and workflows, every development of any sort is really sky is the limit, essentially. So that's a wrap for this session, and it's time for Q&A. You can also head over to githubsatellite.com/discussions. We're going to be there and answering all your questions about GitHub workflows and actions and how we are using it and how you can use it. All right, so thank you so much. Let's head back.
Thank you, Shruti. That was an awesome session, and love the demo gods as well as internet gods, like everybody played along. The first question that I have for you is, how has data version controls like DVC's functionality been amplified by GitHub?
Yeah, so I really like this question, because imagine if you have like a team of people you're working with, right? And like you have data coming in every day, and like you're trying to build, you're trying to version, and it gets so complicated that there's no way for you, you're versioning it, but there's no way for you to share those versions between your teams. So maybe you're emailing one person, maybe you're WhatsApping your code and your data to the other person. And like, just imagine that one person gets one data, the other person gets the other data, which is not going to work for your team. So GitHub, a very central role that it's playing is making sure that every team member can switch between different versions, and it acts as a source of truth, and everything works for the entire team rather than just the person who is working on that particular assets and those questions.
Great, great. Thanks for that insight. We also learned in your introduction about you being at Connexa.ai, which is an all-women-led startup. Would love to hear more about how's it working like at that place and what is the story behind it. So tell us more about Connexa.ai.
Yeah, absolutely. I absolutely love working there. It's all women of color who are running the team, all super powerful. And how it was actually started during these COVID months and during the lockdown, where the CEO thought that there's not a lot of women who are leading in the space of AI and leading in the space of startups. So Maria Poonawala, that's the person who's leading it, she thought, let's get together a team of amazing women developers who are really excited about getting into this space and like building software. And within like 2 months, there was so much positive comments and like positive feedback we were receiving from people. And we are just going to launch our new MVP product. And it's so fun working with dynamic women from, even different countries. We have people from Portugal, from Brazil, from Canada, all amazing. And over there as well, I'm always sort of pushing for using GitHub Actions. I'm like, let's go. This is such a great, this is such a great system because I am managing like serverless infrastructure deployments there. And I'm always like, you know what? Let's use GitHub Actions. It's so cool. Absolutely love it.
Thank you. And a big shout out to all your leaders there for thinking about it and starting something which like all of you feel so passionate about. Yes, big shout out to all of them there. The question I have for you is, in the roadmap for actions, like what are the big pieces you're looking forward to?
Yeah. Well, whenever I'm thinking of actions or like GitHub Actions, there's such a great space and like, first of all, an amazing developer community who is like building the actions to make sure that all of the platforms and the systems, you know, you have AWS, you have Azure, and GCP, which was the session we had earlier, which was using actions in GCP. It's such a wholesome environment of building and making sure that all of the developer community, whether they're building with Python or whether they're building with Java, JavaScript, they all feel comfortable, and that's such a big thing. And especially how it gets configured and built together with the GitHub workflow. Also the openness that you have, you can like choose between different options, and just the docs themselves, they're so cool. Absolutely. You know, I'm always looking at the marketplace and I always get so excited. I'm like, whoa, a new action in the marketplace. That's so cool. So yeah, I would always support and push for GitHub Actions as much as I can.
Wow, that was music to my ears. And you talk about a lot of GitHub features and capabilities here. We got this interesting question to almost every speaker, and here it is for you as well. If you got to pick one feature which is your favorite in GitHub, what would that be?
And now this time you can't say
I would say it's probably discussions. That's what I'm gonna say. Because it's bringing that developer community together, you know, like we are able to talk, we are able to discuss things, and it's always such a good thing to receive feedback, right? And just like talk with the community, and GitHub has such an amazing developer community, and it's always growing. Yes, and it's so cool that this feature was implemented. You can go in, you can talk, you can talk about what you want to build, you can talk about what the problems are. I would always say GitHub discussions. All actions would come second.
Wow, I love talking to you. You're like a super fan of GitHub, so I thank you so much there. Another one that I see coming up is how, especially again, coming to ML Ops, bringing data scientists and engineers together. Like what's one thing you would want to share of how can they start collaborating much more better?
Yeah, no, that's a really wonderful question. And I would say that, you know, it's such a broad infrastructure, like ML and ML Ops is such a broad infrastructure. And with their different aspects, you know, you have the ETL with data, then you have like the training of it, then you have the deploying of it. But it's such a central system, especially with like tools and services like GitHub. It's like such a central system that whatever everyone is working on, they can collaborate very easily. And also they can sort of see the team movement as they move through different processes. So the whole ecosystem of developer engineers and ML Ops, I think it's a great infrastructure for, especially for me, I love being in this infrastructure, and I love being able to contribute to not just the ML part of deploying things, or not just the ML part of training the data itself, but also the whole infrastructure of how or where the data is coming in from, and how we can design it, and how we can make it more suitable to the users. That continuous feedback from the team and users, super essential.
Wow. You packed a lot of goodness in this talk, and we're going to tell our viewers that you're not leaving them for another 30 minutes, and you will be with them at GitHub discussions. So we'll take your leave, and bye-bye, Shruti. But viewers, do throw all your queries, all your questions to her at GitHub discussions.
So we're getting close to the end. I don't know, I have a happy and sad feeling. It's been so good. But yes, we also coming to an end to it. Folks, remember to share with us on Twitter, #GitHub Satellite, and share with us your favorite moments, your favorite session, as well as what you've been loving. Where are you watching us from? So share everything at GitHub Satellite.
Okay, Divya, I got one last chance for you to win this awesome Octoplush. Are you up for it?
Oh, I love
All
this.
you got to do is tell me, why should a student subscribe for the developer pack?
Okay. Students, do you have money? Can you buy all the tools that Mohit and I or everybody in GitHub can? No, right? The best way to get access to top industry tools is by applying to the student developer pack. You get tools, 100+ tools worth of $200,000. And you get all of that free if you apply for the developer pack, and you can then develop code. It just democratizes software development, isn't it? You'll have the same tools that everybody in GitHub, in the company, in the industry has. So go to education.github.com.
You said it the best way possible. And there you go, emptying my shelves one more time.
Oh, I love this. Thank you so much. And folks, go get the student developer pack.
Absolutely. And with that, let's jump into our next session, which is about how GitHub uses GitHub for collaboration, right? We just don't make the tools, but we use them ourselves as well. We're going to hear a lot about how internally GitHub is getting used across the organization, be it developers, be it the sales teams, be it the marketing teams.
I want to steal this opportunity from you, Mohit, to introduce Satish. He is one of my favorite engineering counterparts, someone who I go to for advice, as well as our in-house wrapper. So sharing all about GitHub for collaboration is Satish Kumar Nankani. He's a staff engineering manager at GitHub, leads the chat ops area, and is passionate about leveraging technology to create an impact at scale for developer products and platforms to achieve more. So over to you, Satish, and rock it.
Namaste everyone. Welcome to GitHub Satellite. GitHub is a place where people build software. Every day, millions of developers use GitHub to create things that touch billions of people. To be at GitHub is an awesome responsibility. And I lead the chat ops integration team in GitHub, building products like Slack and Teams GitHub app with a goal to amplify engineering productivity. I am Satish Nankani. Let's start with numbers. ChatOps is a team of 9 engineers, and the team has done 80 deployments in last 4 weeks, making the average to 4 deployments per working day. It is truly awesome from a DevOps metrics point of view. I let you all guess what the other 4 numbers are and post your answers in the GitHub discussion, our Twitter, and use hashtag GitHub Satellite. There is a story behind these numbers that makes them magical and absolutely motivating for my team. The story of emotions started last year in March 2020, and I still remember sitting in a conference room with leadership team pitching the idea to build the vision of building a unified ChatOps platform. My team was super excited to build this vision, project execution barely started, and everyone in the company was asked to work from home due to pandemic. Major blow to team collaboration resulted in reduced team velocity. Keeping the team velocity aside, every engineer was going through varying emotions, making them feel anxious, isolated, annoyed, worried, and sometimes frozen and stuck. But this is past. Coming back to present, we are just a couple of weeks away from shipping our 4th deliverable and making the vision a reality in April, in next couple of weeks. I'm super excited to share the journey of unified chat. I'm super excited to share my team's journey and give a walkthrough of how GitHub uses GitHub for collaboration. I mean, inclusive collaboration, and along the way, share practices and processes in engineering that help us shift faster, whether we work from home or office. In simple words, collaboration means working with others. By end of this session, we will learn about 8 key elements to enable an effective and inclusive collaborative culture in organization using GitHub. The code that powers github.com mostly resides in a mono repo. It's surprising, but that's the fact. And to enable team autonomy, every team own repository setup specifically for the issues and team documentation, allowing them to tune their day-to-day process. There are also teams which maintain their code in dedicated repo. I have got a picture of Slack repository which stores the ChatOps code, and the team has enabled almost all the features of GitHub. Structurally, everything in GitHub organization starts with the repository. There is a repository for everything, literally, for onboarding, job posting, benefits, values, even entitlements are maintained in a repository. The best part of this setup is it helps everyone in the company to find the information quickly and easily. Planning and tracking is standardized across teams in GitHub. The goals translate into small, consistently sized issues classified as initiatives, epics, features, and tasks to track work across all of engineering. And this facilitates us to speak a consistent language in terms of scoping and prioritization while collaborating with teams. Project boards are used across teams to organize and prioritize the work. Project boards are made up of issues, pull requests, and notes that are categorized as cards in different columns. Team project boards are accessible across organization, and anybody in GitHub can discover this project board easily just by searching. And they can start collaborating either by subscribing to an issue of their interest or maybe share their thoughts or comments to enhance the feature. If something is a priority, yes, it's a priority for the whole team. And we limit the number of in-progress epics to 2 for a team of size 8. And this has been a great way to have a focused execution on delivering high customer value faster. We have seen increased team bonding as there is developer engagement among team, as there is deeper engagement among team members to work together closely towards a common and shared goal. Issue templates. Issue templates play a vital role in bringing consistency by customization and standardization of the information captured in GitHub issues when they are created. Let's take an example of a GitHub issue which is created using epics, which is created using templates. The labels are automatically included when an issue is opened using templates. Labels are used to classify different types of issues, epic, feature, and others. And issues can have as many labels as we want. Epic is focused on a specific problem statement, and Epic acts as a shared goal for a group of engineers working on it. An Epic is a group of features captured as task list in a description, and task list as clickable checkboxes. We just go and select and unselect these checkboxes to track the progress of if a feature is complete or not. And these help us to track the progress easily with minimal follow-ups. And if you see, there are milestones set which sets the right expectation with the stakeholders on when this epic is going to be shipped. And the same epic shows up in multiple project dashboards for tracking at different management levels. If you see, the CE Chatoff's project dashboard is the dashboard owned by my team. Apart from that, this epic is also getting tracked into 2 other dashboards. Moving to feature. A feature acts as a unit of work for around 2 weeks, and anything greater than 2 weeks is moved to different feature, thereby enabling us to do work parallelization. So in this way, we can have multiple engineers working on the same epic and different features. A feature is usually assigned to one engineer, giving them an opportunity to take complete accountability to drive the feature to completion. And feature is a group of tasks. And similarly, the way we use in epics, we make use of task lists to track the progress of all these tasks. The best part of using task list here is we have something called definition of done, and capturing a list of tasks to be completed as task list sets the right expectation with the engineer working on the feature in terms of what needs to be completed. And features only show up in the team dashboard, but no one is stopping them to monitor in other dashboards too. And features are shipped as and when they are complete, empowering the team to ship often, iterate fast, and encourage calculated risk-taking. Unlike Epic, feature is only tracked in team-level project dashboard, as I mentioned. Where is the discussion happening? All the action happens in issues, GitHub issues. Let's take an example of an issue created in a bug bash done by the team. The issue was created by a product manager putting a title and the details in the description, and then a senior engineer triages the issue, and the engineer question and makes use of the @mention functionality to start the collaboration from GitHub issues. @mention results in sending a notification to the engineer who was mentioned, and @mentions provide a flexible way to get the right people involved in the issue. Once the engineer gets the notification, they click the link available in the notification, come back to GitHub issue, and the collaboration starts from there. And if you can see, the bug was closed in the same day, and primarily because the entire collaboration started from GitHub issue. And apart from getting things done, capturing everything at one place in GitHub issues helps us to maintain the context and the history of actions, which enables information discovery, and the decisions taken can be referred in future. By the way, if you are wondering what all goes into the issue, then literally everything is captured, every detail from spec clarification, design proposals, design chatter, meeting notes, decision taken, literally everything. We also use discussions. Discussions are used for brainstorming when there are new initiatives and when we know it's going to take longer. They're also used for team building, like how was the weekend? What were you doing? What's your plan for the coming weekend? And all these gets into discussion. Discussions are we use not only for technical, but also for fun elements and increasing the collaboration in the team. Now, how do we keep everybody in the entire organization to be aligned on the status? Then we have a concept of status update comment. It is just like a comment on the epic, which covers the status, whether it is red, green, or yellow, towards the projected ship date. Apart from that, we encourage having demo video links And these demo video links can be from anywhere. It could be a small working prototype coming from a developer environment or production or staging. They don't need to be only collected or recorded in production. And we believe in demos and not memos. So the other part of standard status update comment is risks and mitigations. This helps us to set right expectation with our stakeholders, and we call out dependencies and risks that we have, which can delay our ship date. And we also share the mitigation plan. Moving to next, once the design is closed, the core part of the engineer who wants to go and develop and ship the product as soon as possible. In the whole exercise of shipping this after coding, I want to talk about a bit ChatOps. ChatOps is about conversation-driven development by bringing the tools into conversation. Every organization or most of the organization makes use of Slack and Teams for day-to-day interactions in chat. And ChatOps is one which brings all the tools and processes into the conversation where the engineers are. This is an example of a pull request created by an engineer. And in this, we encourage engineers to capture design changes and also user experience. And if the change results in a user experience change, then putting before and after experience helps the reviewers to get the context and review faster. This PR is also linked to an issue, and as soon as this PR is merged, that issue will get automatically closed. The PR is assigned to reviewers, and to make sure none of the PRs are getting into production without review, we have branch protection rules set on our repository, which helps us to ensure that every line of code getting into production is reviewed by the engineer. Apart from this, the quality is also baked into the whole PR workflow process. We leverage actions, and actions help us to automate, customize, and execute our software development workflows. These are the list of actions available in my team's repository. And to give an example, we use code coverage as part of our PR workflow. And as soon as a PR is raised, the code coverage tool runs and posts the outcome of that in a tabular format. And if there is a dip of even 0.5% in unit test coverage, then the PR, even if it's approved, it can't be merged. Okay, now let's go to the PR workflow. The author creates the PR and adds reviewers, and then the reviewer receives the request notification on Slack GitHub app. Slack GitHub app is the ChatOps offering from GitHub. Apart from Slack, we also have Teams GitHub app available in the Teams Marketplace. So once the notification is received by the reviewer, they navigate to the PR from the link in the notification, reviews the PR, and leaves the comment for changes. And once the comments are left, in this case, the reviewer is asking for a couple of changes from the author, and then the author receives the notification and modifies, addresses the PR comment, then Ed mentions the reviewer since the comments are addressed. The reviewer gets a notification, goes to the PR, reviews the changes, and approves the PR. That's it. And once the PR is approved, the author of the PR gets a notification on the GitHub app. Now what next? The PR is approved, code is ready to get deployed in production. And deployment in one way is a complex process if even there is a new engineer in the team, right? They need to understand a lot. But in GitHub, deployments are simplified, right? Now I'm going to show you the real power of ChatOps. The engineer, in this case, heads to ChatOps of Slack channel and delegates the work of deployment by running a simple .deploy command. The work is delegated to none other than Hubot. Hubot is GitHub's Hubot is GitHub's most friendly, efficient, and collaborative employee. Almost every GitHub developer interacts with Hubot literally every day, multiple times. And Hubot is a robot. We just ask the Hubot to do the deployment with a single command, and the job is taken care. The deployment is done. What next? Time for a party. The engineer is super happy, and the engineer goes to the channel and shares the completion of the epic with team. The team starts to sparkle the engineers who contributed towards team goal by shipping the epic. The dot sparkle command that you are seeing on the screen is a Hubot command used to recognize team members' effort. Hubot not only does complex things, it plays an instrumental role in bringing fun and spread joy within the organization. This brings me back to how ChatOps team used GitHub for collaboration. As I said earlier, it was an emotional journey when I think about the last year when we started in March. And the team used GitHub for collaboration, and the project helped us to navigate a transition from our emotions of isolation, nervousness, helplessness, out of control, to being creative, confident, inquisitive, amazed, and joyful. Now let's do a quick recap. Here is the glimpse of GitHub features showcased in this session. Embracing the right practices and processes along with these GitHub features act as a catalyst in boosting the key elements of collaboration and creates a culture of effective and inclusive collaboration in an organization. Moving to the puzzle. I'm hoping everyone was able to crack this and post the answers either in GitHub discussion or on Twitter. Let me decode this for you. As I said, 80 deployments by team in last 4 weeks, making an average of 4 deployments per working day. The rest of the numbers are, and you're able to achieve this 80 deployments by working on 66 issues which were closed in last 4 weeks, 351 issue comments, which shows the amount of collaboration we do on these issues. 72 PRs were raised, and almost every PR lands into production. 253 PR comments to ensure the code is sent with high quality. That's it from my side. Thank you.
Oh my God, Satish, what an amazing rendition of that 1 year journey. Hats off to you for that. And what those numbers really blew my mind up, right? Before we jump into Q&A, we heard that you are in-house wrapper at GitHub. So will you just do a small bit for us and all our viewers right away?
Are you sure you want me to do that?
100% waiting for it, Satish.
Okay, I have to get in the mood first then. Code issues, PR discussions or action. Code issues, PR discussions or actions. Every feature is built with passion. It mentions and notifications enables inclusive collaboration. Oh, my future generation, do check out GitHub Education. Code Spaces is the new workstation. GitHub is developers' ultimate destination. Ultimate destination.
What a drum roll!
Oh,
what
wow,
a drum roll!
That
Amazing.
was yes, like once more. That was awesome, Satish. I love it. We should record.
Yeah, by the
this
way,
and we should
I don't rap. I just try to rhyme lines.
Come on, it was amazing. It was amazing. Let's submit to Q&A now. We got a bunch for you. Divya.
Yes, I have to now get back in the zone to ask you questions. Okay,
Sure.
so you talked about the emotional journey. What was the biggest turning point there for you as well as your team?
Yeah, so if I recollect correctly, to be very honest, personally, I was also struggling through that phase, right? This was the second time in my entire professional career where I was feeling helpless and out of control to help my team. And if I have to think what helped really, it's not a big thing, but I think the weekly check-ins that we started after our Scrum every Monday, we have Scrum every day, right? And then we started this way of interacting with folks, doing a weekly check-in on Mondays, where we used to share with each other how everyone is what everyone is going through, just speak out, and what is working for them. That's it, right? And this whole concept made everyone realize everyone is going through the same phase. We are not alone. The whole world is going through this. And we need to work together as a team to find out how to come out of or how to handle this unprecedented, complicated, and hard situation that the whole world started seeing last year. So if I have to pick one thing, then it was that weekly check-ins that we started doing with the team.
Very insightful. Thanks for being so honest and transparently kind of bringing these and talking about these things. We got one more for you. What was the most challenging key element in leveling up on collaboration across the teams?
Interesting. So what I showed was 8 key elements of collaboration. See, in simplicity, collaboration means working with others. But that is not that easy when we work with like 2,000 people in the organization, or even when we work with 10 people, or when we have 5 people at home, right? The most challenging one is always bringing in that inclusion part in the whole collaboration story. That is the most difficult one. We talk about diversity a lot, right? But if there is no inclusion, it is very difficult to make the diversity successful in an environment. And this is something that we achieved by writing a lot in this async mode. And we started sharing and putting those in discussions, issues everywhere, where the team was able to see who is doing what, and they had an opportunity to come back, read about the proposals, share their thoughts, and contribute and share their diverse opinions. In this way, as a team, we were able to come to a inclusive and conclusive conclusion. Yeah, but it's a journey. We are fully not there yet. We are still learning. It's not that we are perfect, but I'm extremely happy to see the graph, the way it went up, and we are still learning, and there's a lot to learn. And GitHub is the way to make use of all these in the right way to make everything successful. I'm joyful too.
Thank you, Satish. Thank you again for your vulnerability and sharing from your heart. This was really insightful, and again, things that everybody around us can learn as well. Again, thank you for a great session. And remember, folks, Satish will be with us in discussions. So you can have your heart-to-heart chats with him there as well and ask him all the questions. Folks, discuss with Satish on discussions. Thank you. Thank you again, Satish. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Namaste.
Namaste.
Okay, here we are, the final session of GitHub Satellite India 2021. Hope you enjoyed it as much as we enjoyed hosting you all. Thanks a lot. Thank you very, very much for sharing your comments, talking to us on all the platforms, and hanging out with us for these 2 days. And a huge shout out to Karan and Anisha on the OSS channel, who equally engaged you and brought so much insightful conversations to you all. And an extra special shout out for all the guests and all the speakers who came across, engaged with you all, and brought such knowledge of nuggets for all of us.
Last 2 days has been so much fun, like so many months and weeks of work in such awesome joy experience. Like Mohit said, hope you folks enjoyed as much as we did. And to adding to the thank you notes, Mohit, I want to say a big thank you to you for being the best co-host. Everybody backstage, thank you so much. Lauren, Brian, Haley, Tammy, thank you. This would not been fun without you folks. So thank you so much for that. And
yes, and
you,
don't
Mohit,
worry,
for my,
all the content that
and thank
watched
you, Mohit,
here.
for my awesome goodies as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. And don't worry, all the content that you watched here, if you want to relive any of the moment, you can go to githubsatellite.com, and all these beautiful moments are right here for you. Whenever you want, you can consume them. And remember, we really want to hear from you and want to improve on areas, do better than what we did this time. So go fill out the attendee survey. It's right here for you to share your thoughts with us.
And share with us on Twitter. We're continuing to hashtag GithubSatellite. You can even tag Mohit Juneja 87 or Divya Vaishnavi, and we'll come back to you. Now, let's go to the last session of the day. And it's time for the final session by Manish Sharma, General Manager of GitHub India, an avid reader. In 2005, he actually started the first online book library called bookmeabook.com. And to continue with the passion of reading books and sharing it with everybody in every walk of life. Manish is based in Delhi and enjoys learning guitar as well as video games. So Manish, over to you. 1 second, Mohit, Manish is your boss. Do you want to share a snippet about him?
Oh, absolutely. I'll share a small secret. Manish is a coffee connoisseur. From what beans to use, how to crush them, how to brew the best coffee, you can ask him about anything under the sky about coffees. So Manish, looking forward to hearing from you. Take it away, Manish. Over to you.
Thank you, Karan, Mohit, Divya, Anisha. You've been excellent hosts. I'm sure everybody enjoyed the last 2 days and all the fancy stuff that you've been doing. I've discovered 2 secrets. One, Mohit is a great Bhangra dancer. So, stay tuned for more meetups where you will see him in action. And I also found out that Karan loves to play Holi. So I'm sure it was fun for all of you, but most of all, thank you to each and every one of you for being with us over the last 2 days as we celebrated the India developer community. It has been a pleasure serving all of you over the last 1 year, and we are overwhelmed with all the love, the engagement that you've given. The session started yesterday with Erica sharing with all of us how we've grown to more than 5.8 million developers from India who call GitHub their home. It is super, super exciting to see that we added 1.8 million over the last 1 year. But what's more exciting, and Karan talked about how I always love anything open source, has been seeing that Indian developers have been driving the most engagement on open source over the last 1 year on GitHub. This is just fascinating. I come from a very different era. I started coding in the last century. I always like to say this because I keep people guessing, what my real age is. But it's so great to see the changes that have been happening in the ecosystem with young developers like yourselves, innovating and contributing back to the open source community. So we thank you for all the support. So the last 2 days have been great. I know it has been a power-packed session with so many content coming your way. But as Karan mentioned, all of these 22 sessions will be available for you on demand for you to go and check whenever you feel comfortable or have time to do so. Once again, thank you so much. I also want to talk about what Shanku and the engineering team took you through in the morning. There is a lot of convergence that is happening across security, across development, collaboration, especially in today's world where everybody is distributed. We have so many customers from India who are really driving innovation and leveraging GitHub for getting their teams to collaborate and build software. And these customers are all of all sizes, whether large or small, from any industry, whether they are companies that are transforming into software companies or born digital companies. And one such large organization is Cognizant. Cognizant needs no introduction. They are one of the largest developer companies in the world with teams and customers across the globe that they service. Let's hear from Hari, who's the AVP Enterprise Architect at Cognizant, on how they are driving transformation and developer productivity using GitHub.
Hello, everyone. Cognizant's internal IT team serves one of the largest enterprises in the world with 300,000 employees worldwide. It's a Fortune 192 company, $16.7 billion in revenue. Company's critical business operations runs on internal systems and processes. As part of the Cognizant's digital insight strategy, which is about transforming the internal processes and internal systems, it is based on three-pronged approach. First is modernizing employee experience. Second is building a strong data and integration foundation. Third is modernizing our application ecosystem on enterprises' cloud-first, mobile-first strategy. We have to be kind of very nimble and agile in our processes. And we also need a cultural shift in terms of how we deliver our products and services. Our entire engineering processes and tools have undergone transformation using GitHub and DevOps. Hundreds of software professionals now on GitHub. The conversation is shifting towards how do I engineer the code? How do I internalize the best practices available in the industry?
Thank you, Hari. Let me now talk about some of the programs that Erica mentioned, and I'm sure all of you are as excited as I am when we announced it yesterday. And these programs are really going to drive the engagement for developer communities across students, startups, and the open source community. Many of you have already started applying for these programs. I am so overwhelmed by the mails that we've received from each and every one of you over the last 24 hours since we announced this. I do request you to leverage these programs and give feedback. A lot of these programs we have created over the last 1 year based on the feedback that each and every one of you gave on what you expect from GitHub. We are really looking forward to feedback coming our way for creating more such programs to drive the engagement with developers like yourself. And the whole purpose of this is to get more and more developers onto platform like GitHub. There is a huge generational shift that's happening in the industry today with more than 500 million applications that are slated to be written by 2023, which is more than the last 40 years combined. I think it's a great opportunity for open source, for students who are stepping into the software development world, and also for enterprises to leverage GitHub to really build software. And that's been our purpose ever since we started our operations last year, to serve you better, to be closer to what you would require from a platform like GitHub as we push the boundaries of developing applications to move human progress. So really excited to be here. And in a way, it's been great doing this virtual session with you. I can share that last year when we were kicking off our operations, we did our kickoff on Valentine's Day, 14 February 2020. It's so vivid in my mind. It feels like 10 years, but it's only been 1 year. We were expecting 250, 300 people to show up, and we had 2,000 people show up at the event, and it was a physical event. And we were overwhelmed by the love that we got from developers. And I'm sure by now doing this virtual, we were able to reach out to more and more developers across the length and breadth of India. So really excited, and I'm thankful that you were able to spend that time with us. As a next step, I would request that each of you follow our repository on GitHub. This is a public repository that we've created to share more details about the 3 programs that we've announced. And also, on an ongoing basis, we will keep sharing meetups, hackathons, more programs, and you can use the discussion boards to interact with the India team on how we can engage with you a lot better. I think closing Satellite would be incomplete without me talking about my favorite moment, which is Yoga to Cat, which we've unveiled for India. I just love this Mona avatar, and I'm sure you can see the details in the lotus petals that show the Git operations. For a community connected by code like India, this is, I think, a wonderful representation of what GitHub is and what it means for India. Thank you very much, everybody. I wish you a very happy Holi. For those who are going to be attending the workshop, all the best. I hope you have a great time learning from our engineering team on how to use GitHub in a more powerful way. Thank you and have a good weekend.